Ladies and gentlemen, esteemed speakers and viewers, I am Hellam, Director of the Open Estonia Foundation, and I am delighted to extend our very warm welcome to all of you at the 26th Open Society Forum right here in Tallinn. First, I would like to provide you with some essential information. Our official working languages are English and Estonian. The first panel will be conducted in English, followed by the second panel in Estonian. If you haven't already, please make sure to obtain headphones. Our event is being live streamed online on our website of the Open Estonia Foundation, and we encourage you to participate in the conversation on social media by using hashtag Open Society Forum. You can see it here, but it's very not the best place to look at. And we are looking forward to your active engagement. Today's forum, titled Europe at the Crossroads, Civil Society, Media Literacy and Resilience in Europe, could not have come to fruition without the invaluable support of the Active Citizen Fund's Regional Civil Society Initiative, a program designed by the European Economic Area and Norway grants, and the European Commission's Citizens, Equality, Rights and Values program. Thank you for this support. Here I would like to extend our heartfelt gratitude to all presenters and moderators, with special appreciation to our international guests and speakers from Bulgaria, Poland and Latvia. Dear participants, now it gives me a great pleasure to hand over the floor for welcoming remarks to Vivian Loonela, head of the European Commission representation in Estonia. Following Vivian's welcoming words, we are honored to welcome Kaimo Kuusk as our keynote speaker. Kaimo Kuusk currently serves as the ambassador of Estonia to Lithuania. Previously, he held the position of ambassador to Ukraine from 2019 to 2023. Dear participants, I hope you will find the discussions engaging and thought-provoking, and I encourage you to prepare very great questions to our esteemed panelists. Thank you again, and please, Vivian, the floor is yours. Enjoy.
Thank you so much, Mal. Really a pleasure to be here and see so many also familiar faces and friends here. Very, very glad. But first of all, I would really like to thank you, Mal, for the work that you have put now, as we've seen already, for the 26th time in organizing this forum. I don't think we'd be here without you. So thank you so much for all the work that you're doing. On the topic of disinformation, you will have, as we've seen in the program, fascinating discussions throughout the day or this afternoon, looking at all the different sides and elements of it and the challenges, starting with media literacy, the awareness raising. But I thought I would give you an understanding also of what is done at European level on something that we cannot do at personal or even at state level. And that is the work that we're doing with internet platforms. Because, of course, disinformation as such is not new. It has always been there. And it also is disseminated elsewhere than on internet platforms. But what we've seen over the past decade is this tremendous rise in the dissemination of disinformation on the large scale in internet platforms. We've seen a particular rise with the Russian war in Ukraine, sadly, and again this weekend with the attacks on Israel. The amount of disinformation peddled on the large-scale platforms is alarming. And based on that, what we've done at the European level is that, first of all, we tried to approach it from a good cooperation way and established a code of practice on disinformation, with by now 44 signatories, including a lot of the large-scale platforms such as Facebook, YouTube, TikTok, LinkedIn, but also including advertising industry, civil society, because of course you need the whole of society approach to be able to address those issues. And what we've done with this code of practice is that we've put together principles that the platforms adhere to. And now in September, for the very first time, they published their own reports, giving quite detailed information about how easy it is to find this information on their platforms, how much engagement such content receives, and also indicators about the sources. And that was published in September, and I really advise you to have a look at it because it gives you a very detailed information about how the platforms themselves assess the situation. Of course, from the Commission side, we were happy with this first step of this good sort of voluntary cooperation, but it's clear that platforms need to do more. And one platform which comes to mind, of course, is what used to be known as Twitter, now X, that has exited from this code of practice that we had established, where it had been one of the establishers, and where we also see, unfortunately, and we saw it again this weekend, that the ratio of disinformation posts is the highest. So what we've established, and that is really a watershed, I think, in the way the European Union is functioning vis-à-vis controlling the public space that is there to fight disinformation, is that we've established this Digital Services Act, which sets as a rule, sets the rules for the large-scale internet platforms for transparency, privacy, removing illegal content, protecting vulnerable users, and crucially tackling disinformation. And you might have seen that now, following the attacks in Israel, Commissioner Breton, the European Commissioner responsible for digital market, who was here in Tallinn for the Digital Summit earlier in September, has already approached X, or Elon Musk specifically, to remind him of the obligations that X has, in fact, under European law in order to be able to operate in Europe, and underlining that there will, of course, be steps taken then. Because when you read in detail the Digital Services Act, of course, the aim is never to start with fining, but there is the possibility, and a considerable possibility. So I think why I wanted you to be aware of this is also the fact that this shows us again the added value of the European Union, meaning that I don't think any of our member states, even the biggest, the largest ones, would be able to approach one of those large-scale platforms and say, we ask you to take this information down, we ask you to change your algorithms, you need to structurally look at how your system functions. But as an EU, this powerful market of nearly 450 or almost more, 450 million people, we have that power. So that actually hopefully leads us to a better space, particularly keeping in mind that next June, please mark it in your calendars, we have the European elections. So we for sure will see an increase yet in this disinformation, which for now we're already preparing for. So thank you so much, and I wish you really very fruitful discussions here, and I'm happy to exchange places with Kaimo.
Dear colleagues, dear friends, auditorium, good afternoon. Yeah, I'm Kaimo Kuusk, now coming from Vilnius, where I started 2 months ago. Before that, I was 4 years in Ukraine, Estonian ambassador. And one topic I have thought of quite at some time already is when we exactly appeared in war. We can add there this infospace or influence, operations war, but when it started. We talked in a corridor before the conference started about training negotiations. So I will share with you also one experience from my own career. Years ago, I was trained for negotiations. And the thing I remembered from this training, the most important thing for me is that I learned was understand where and when negotiations start. I give you example from Russians. They demand you that you will lay down the arms, that you will give all the real estate of Russian Orthodox Church here to them, and well, you basically surrender. And then they are interested in and ready to start negotiate with you. So even before negotiation starting for you, they're asking from you things you even haven't thought of putting on a table of negotiations. The same thing is with war. When the war starts. For me, it started when I woke up 24th of February a year ago in Kiev when the cruise missiles blasts, well, made such a noise that I couldn't continue to sleep. And after brushing the teeth, I got a call from Tallinn that war started. Well, I answered that, yes, I feel it. Or whether it started 5 days before when we handed over, me, myself, as well, in Borispol airport, the javelins for Ukrainians to protect themselves against the possibility of enlarging the war. Or was it 2020 in summer when Estonia was the first one to hand over Ukrainians lethal weapons? They were 2,000 pistols. Pistol is not the frontline weapon, but lethal still. I will dig deeper. 2014, Crimea, Donbass, but maybe it was 2008, Russia attacked Georgia. Or a year before that, 2007, Bronze Soldier crisis, the rioting, looting on the streets of Tallinn, first full-scale state-initiated cyber attack against another state. Did war started then? Or did it started at the end of 90s when Yeltsin's Russia first had military exercises called Zapad, where they practiced how to attack three Baltic states and occupy part of that? Or was it 1991 when we declared independence and Russia cancelled the deals with us, supplying diesel, petrol, and heavy oil? I was living 10 kilometers from the school. Buses didn't go, so I went to school by foot. I had time to think during those walks why someone wants to punish us for wish to be free. And Estonian government those days thought how to evacuate whole Lasnamägi to the farmhouses because there was no heavy oil to heat our Lasnamägi. So we tend to forget about those kind of things. So wars are not starting when the first shot has been done. The same with the information wars. It's not starting when the first fake news have been launched. Russian special services manuals, which are not public, are describing that Russia is in constant war. They don't have peacetime. Zero. They don't have peacetime. They have active phase of war, hot phase, let's call it like that, and then the times when they prepare for the active phase of war, shaping the future battlefield. So for them, the war is constant. But what about us? Can we ignore it? Well, I think being in Ukraine, served in state institutions for quite a long time, that we can't ignore it. There's a saying that ignorance is a bliss. Well, it's the bliss of a victim. When criminal wants to rob you, it's not very helpful if you are ignoring it. So we have to be aware. We have to, I think, be ready to accept that's the constant situation we are living with such a neighbor, empire, evil, trying to take our territory quite often, and if it's not the hot phase of war, they are shaping the battleground with the small details which if we open our eyes, we can look from everyday life, be it monuments, which someone says that it's a history. For me, it's the empire's way of marking the territory. Or, let's say I was 6 years old in Viljandi hospital, and that's the time I was learning to read, because my mom didn't read for me. And I learned to read with a book about Ilja Muromets. It was labeled then Russian heroes. When I was walking in 2015 in Kiev with my colleague, Ukrainian intelligence officer, he said that nearby in Cherski monastery, Ilja Muromets is buried. So then I realized that he was Ukrainian. The same with artists, Kazimir Malevich, Ilya Repin, or writers who Moscow has stolen from Ukrainians. I know someone arguing that, hey, but those writers, they wrote in Russian. Yeah, of course, but we are not saying to Norwegian writers who wrote in Danish that they are Danish writers. Denmark also is not saying that those were ours. They are Norwegian writers. I was so much irritated when I returned, when I went to Vilnius, entered my cabinet, and my predecessor has left me a heavy book which was called Great Russian Painters. My emotion, I took the pen and I just scratched the Russian, right there, Ukrainian, in Ukrainian, because I learned the language then. I thought that I will carry it here, but it was heavy. It was printed 2019. I don't know what was in mind of her leaving this book for me into that cabinet, but I took it very personally. And you are taking it very personally when you are living in a city and the rockets are flying above you. So, to conclude, for me, it's the constant status with such a neighbor. You have to be aware, you have to prepare yourself, society as well, and teach the others. I think the conference like that is helping. What I saw in Ukraine, one thing what can help against such a neighbor is feeling of ownership. The civil society, the citizens feeling that they own a bit of their country. Ukrainians, year by year, they got this ownership feeling. The big war helped, so cruel how it is, to gain this ownership in them very much. And they will continue. So it's possible, well, I like to name it even a lifestyle to be Estonian, lifestyle to be Ukrainian, lifestyle to be Lithuanian or Belarusian, to face it. Otherwise, you can't understand when the negotiations started or when the war started and when you are disappeared. Such a positive note. I wish you good conference, and I wish that you will give more those tools how to face the situation. Thank you very much.
My name is Raul Rebane. I am the moderator of the next panel. And the name is State of Play, Fake News, Disinformation and War Against Ukraine. And we use these words now every day. But it has not been this way all the time. I started to learn information war theory 28 years ago. And first 10 years were very calm and peaceful. It was almost impossible to explain that there is some kind of information influence and it's not media only. And if we remember, only 17 months ago, we had a fight in Estonia to shut down Russian channels, propaganda channels, so-called collective Solovyev. And in the beginning, it was very difficult because people said that, what are you doing? It's free word, it's journalism. You are shutting down the free words and so on. But it was not the case. And a lot of people in these days didn't understand that actually these channels, they were just part of Russian military infrastructure. And so far they are. And now they are closed in most European countries. So we are learning so far every day. And what is very useful, not to learn only our own experience, but what is going on in different countries. And today we have three presenters from 3 countries, from Bulgaria, from Poland, from Latvia. And I think it's very, very interesting to know what's going on there, what could happen there, and how it's all connected to us. So, first presenter is Nikola Tulechki from Bulgaria, and Bulgaria has great society analysts. Ivan Krastev, Hristo Hrozev, and Tulechki is one of them. I heard him in a seminar, I think in June in Sofia, and I have some understanding what is his subject. He is data analyst, and he showed the way how it's possible to analyze society. And Nikola, where are you? Please.
So, hello everybody. Thank you for this very nice introduction. You placed the bar very, very high. So I'm Nikola Tulechki. I'm a data scientist and data engineer, and also a civil society activist. And my presentation is about disinformation and propaganda in Bulgaria. But again, I'm not going to bore you with graphics and tables. I'm going to tell a story and try to just draw the context and saturate the context with images and with examples what's going on in Bulgaria. Is this working? Let me see. Can I get the clicker working somehow?
Green button, like normally. Ah,
okay. Okay, so what I'm interested in mostly social media and what's going on in social media. Why am I interested? First of all, because I can analyze it, it's data, and I have tools that I can analyze.
Just a second, I go away because people went there, they don't see.
Okay. First of all, because it's data, it's tools, I have tools to analyze it. And second of all, because it's very, very important. How important it is? Well, I have a number. I promise I won't have any numbers. I have a number, just how many people in Bulgaria use Facebook. So Bulgaria is a little less than 7 million people, 5.2 million people of them, which are between 15 and 75, use social media, which is basically everyone. Everybody is on Facebook. If you cannot visualize what 85% means, this is a photo I like very much, took in Sofia metro. Look at what's going on. So all of the right row are on their phones. This guy is sleeping. He's not relevant. He's probably too old anyway. These are all on their phones. I leave to your imagination what the kid is going to do when he sits down here, right? So everybody's on their phone and everybody's consuming some sort of content. Okay, what can we say about this content, and how does this content influence our day-to-day life, let's say? How does the crazy in social media get out of social media and influence our everyday life? So this is my topic. First of all, just to say, I'm not the first one that remarked this. We all know this photo. I think after this photo came out, the whole world started asking themselves, what is going on, and why do we have people like this? This is the Q shaman. Why do we have people like this invading our institutions? Literally here, you cannot be more literal than this. Invading our institutions, and where does this crazy come from? This was in January 6, 2021. Everybody knows the date. In Bulgaria, we have examples from way before this. So this is one example for 2019. So these people are protesting in front of the Norwegian consulate in Bulgaria because they're convinced that the Norwegian social services are going to abduct their children and give them to childless homosexuals in Norway. I'm not inventing this. These people they are convinced that this is going on. They're victims of the influence operation that came from Russia, and they are so convinced that they're actively trying to prevent this. Here's the same thing. This is a protest in Sofia with people rallying behind this cause. Here, Stop Barnevern. Barnevernet is the name of the social services in Norway. So yeah, Barnevern, don't steal our children. And it's funny, but it's not funny, because what I want to understand is why are these people, how did they get this influence to go out of their work and to go out of their day lives and protest? When you get people out on the street, it becomes serious. It doesn't matter, it's not a joke. So how did this happen? Okay, here's the graph, the only graph that I'm going to show. This is a graph of attention that political parties in Bulgaria attracted in 2021. And I will explain what the graph means. So I'm measuring attention on social media, number of likes, comments, and interactions on posts per week. So the graph is per week. Scale is up to 1 million. I'm sorry, you couldn't see it on the slide. Scale is up to 1 million. This peak here means that these people, this party got 1 million interactions on their output in a certain week. Each color is a political party. It's the sum of their pages, profiles, and all their output on social media over 1 year. All the stuff down here is all the parties, so you can see what the normal rate of interaction is. It's around 100,000. It can go to 200,000 per week. This is an election campaign. See, there's a bit of a peak here. It's an election campaign. This also is an election campaign. And this is like normally how this would work. When there is an election campaign, they pay for ads, they put content out there, vote for me, I'm gonna fix the world, blah, blah. These guys here, this is the far-right, post-truth, pro-Russian crazy party that all of the Eastern European countries have. We have one too. It's called Revival, Возрождение in Bulgarian. And we can see their progress on social media. And what is interesting is, doesn't look good. Anyway, what's interesting is what do the peaks correspond to? And they don't correspond to political events. They correspond to societal events. So first peak, which differentiated them from the rest, is the voting of COVID mandates. This is exactly 2 years ago, 2021, October, voting of COVID mandates. They were, of course, against COVID mandates, for freedom, vaccine skill, all the stuff. So voting of COVID mandates, they started routinely getting above 400,000 likes and shares on Facebook. Next is January 2022. They organized this huge rally against the COVID mandates. Again, huge peak there. Bulgarian national holiday, this also is important. They use national symbols to attract attention. So they're saving the world, saving the country, saving Bulgarian national identity. A lot of attention. And here we cannot see because of the setup, but the last peak is the voting of aid to Ukraine. First attempt at voting aid to Ukraine by the Bulgarian National Assembly. Of course, they are completely against it. They are pro-Russian. You can see how popular attention attention grows. So this is 1 million. They got 1 million interactions in this the week of the voting of military aid to Ukraine. Again, COVID and politics. We had a presidential campaign in April 2021. These are candidates for president. So this clown is out there with the medical jackets. He's a notorious anti-vaxxer, and he's explaining that they're trying to kill us. The evil elites are trying to kill us, basically pushing out talking points on national television as a presidential candidate. This guy, I'm not gonna comment. He came out with a gas mask because he's protesting against the COVID mandates. So again, craziness all around. This is 2023, June. These are anti-government protests in Sofia. These are the yellow cobblestones that we have right in front of our National Assembly. And what's interesting here, it's anti-government protests, but the messaging is QAnon stuff. For those of you that know, stop the Great Reset. This is conspiracy theory 101 talking point. Stop the Great Reset. This is Karl Schwab. Stop the medical fascism. It's 2023. There is no COVID. Stop the medical fascism. Here we see some the Elders of Zion stuff. Illuminati. I don't know what this is. NATO and World Health Organization, global elite. All this QAnon stuff. Here the same people. This is a meme that's printed out on a cardboard paper. It's printed out and it's part of the process. It's something that you share on social media. This Bulgarian QAnon shaman, like the guy with the horns, we have our Eastern European version. He has a megaphone leading the protest against the government, right? Okay, Russians, of course, there are Russians. This is 2023. So I learned yesterday that in Estonia, if you wear the Georgian ribbon, you get a fine. In Bulgaria, 2 months ago, you have Russian flags in Sofia and the protest for peace. So the talking point there is that peace, we should want peace. So we should not help Ukraine and send weapons and be pro-Ukraine, because this way you're helping the war. This is the building of the representation of the European Commission in Sofia, which these guys passed in front, and because they're very peaceful, they threw red paint. Because the Europeans are pro-war, they're helping Ukraine, they're continuing the war, so they threw red paint on the building. They're very peaceful, right? Okay, this is Her Excellency Eleonora Mitrofanova, ambassador of the Russian Federation in Bulgaria. This is the most influential YouTuber in Bulgaria called Martin Karbovsky. This is the guy that we do the experiment every time with students. We ask them to name a journalist. This is the guy that's the first year student's name. So she's a guest at his show on YouTube. It has 250,000 views in several months. Hugely influential, spilling out talking points. Nobody has a problem with that. Also has almost 4,000 comments. This for the Bulgaria is a small country, so these are huge numbers for Bulgarian YouTube. It has 4,000 comments, and the comments, this is interesting, maybe more than half of the comments look like this. So this is the username, and then some code. What does this mean? This is automatically generated comments. So not only they capture the attention by convincing influencers to promote their talking points, but they also pour in some algorithmic love, let's say, to trick the algorithms to show the content to everybody. So they have thousands and thousands of comments that look like this. What is this about? Well, it's about tricking the platforms into showing your content to more people. So this is I'm going to go a bit more over this slide. So if I want to show my content on everybody's device, what can I do? I can try to hack the algorithm, so I can spill out a lot of content. This is why most of the propaganda sites have huge quantities of content out there. I can try to coordinate sharing. I have an example for this. I can use hacks like live video and stuff like that. I can also try to hack the user. I can try to play on emotional triggers. They use that a lot. I can use clickbait. I can create communities. But if I'm really good and if I'm read in the dialectical materialism, I can use both of them. So I can search for controversies and try to create fissures in society. I can radicalize the community. So if I create a community, then I radicalize it, show them the most outrageous content, generate powerful negative emotion, create self-identification content, all this stuff. I can do all this stuff these people are doing. Here are 2 examples, very quickly. Here's an example of coordinated sharing. So these are 4 Facebook pages that have nothing in common. So this one is destined to teenagers, so we can see it's like this modern cover page. This one is for religious people. It's called the biggest gift of all is God's love. This is patriotic, so Bulgarian flag, national symbols. It's called For Bulgaria. And this is like, it's called Beautiful Thoughts. And it's destined obviously for like more feminine audience. Same content. So they create these pages, they try to farm communities around them using the memes and the content that's adapted to the community. At one point, they switch and they push out propaganda content. Another example of coordinated sharing, just to show you how seriously these people take social media. So here what's going on is these apparatus here, they're using them to stream simultaneously on more than one profile. So each phone is logged into a profile, and they're streaming the same thing on more than one profile. This is version 1. It's 2 years ago. I counted 7 phones. This is the same count. This is version 2. They have now 13 phones. So they're adapting and developing. And like these Pokemon hunters that we had several years ago, these are political candidates that are trying to leverage as much as possible attention on social media. So this is coordinated sharing. Just to show you how seriously they take this stuff. Okay, so enough doom and gloom, and this is my conclusion. There is hope for the future. I have three elements of hope. First of all, that all of this stuff is that they're at last having awareness at high levels of government. So this is a photo of a training that took place last month in Bulgaria. These are government officials, 2 ministers, dean of the military school, and they had a week-long training on hybrid warfare organized by the National Defense University somewhere in the States. I don't remember where. So they managed to get all these people at the same place and talk to them basically about the same stuff that I'm talking to you about here. So this is quite a win. So next is awareness among the general public. This is the first page of the most popular newspaper in Bulgaria, which is very propaganda and not very good quality. But the first page 5 days ago was about a deep fake of the prime minister, which in itself, it was a stupid story. Somebody created a deep fake to promote some sort of crypto scam with the face of the prime minister, but they deemed that it's enough interesting and people understand it to put it out on the first page. So this is the win. I mean, people understand that something is going on, that they're being manipulated through content, let's say, which is the win. Third, and most important, as Vivian said, is the Digital Services Act. There is a lot of hope here. And I'm not saying it in an abstract way, the European legislation is going to fix everything. I'm saying it concretely because you should read up on the Digital Services Act, because they put out the weight and the responsibility in some way onto civil society. Most of you are representatives of civil society. Civil society becomes an actor in the whole informational mix. If you are part of academia, you could have a status of a trusted researcher, get data out of the platforms, understand what's going on. If you are a civil society activist, there is a role of a trusted flagger. This means that you can analyze content, and if you see something that's in your expertise, you can flag it and escalate it, and there are mechanisms to control this, mechanisms to ensure that that action is taken, and all this is in the Digital Services Act. So pay attention. How is it implemented in your country? Who is the Digital Services Coordinator, and what kind of status you can have, and how you can use and leverage this to make the informational environment a little bit more, let's say, more humane. This is all I have. Thank you very much. and looking forward to your questions.
Thank you. I have to say that 100% my favorite picture of this presentation was the lady with the 13 mobile phones to take to the air 13 different programs. Is it possible technically?
Every phone is connected to a different Facebook profile, and it live streams from that profile. And it's leveraging, if you're subscribed to the profile, when they live stream, you get a notification. This is because Facebook are trying that they're competing with YouTube, and so that they're using this to compete with YouTube over live videos. But these people are using the competition to push out their message out to the world.
Thank you. Please sit there, and we go, and later we go. Please give it to me. We go further. This is Bulgaria, and now Poland. Maciej Sopyło is the well-known teacher, very active in different social activities, media literacy, and society analysis. So he's doing. And what is going on in Poland, we will know right now.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. It's a great pleasure to be here, and it's unusual for me because I'm a trainer. I'm working with different targets group to build their resistance to disinformation. That's one of my topics, and usually I take this large picture, some data from analysts, from researchers, and today I will try to show you this large picture of disinformation in Poland, and I will try to focus on disinformation connected to war in Ukraine. Okay, so I put some information on slides, text only, just to make it easier for you to follow what I'm talking about. Generally, the number of disinformation connected with the war in Ukraine increased in last month. So this is some data from National Academic Computer Network. It's a state research state institution responsible for security on the internet. And you can see that the number of spreading fake news on the internet connected with the war in Ukraine is increasing. What is more, a lot of these accounts contain some harmful content to Ukrainians, for people who came to Poland, for example, after the war started. So that's important. And what's more, very often the same accounts were used in the past to spread this information about COVID, for example. Exactly the same accounts. So it's very typical for Polish for this information in Poland. So that's the number. And this state institute tried also to describe the way that this information is spreaded. So of course it's quite obvious for me. So usually it started on social media, and Telegram is getting more and more popular communicator in Poland. So it's second most popular communicator after WhatsApp, and it's a very important tool of disinformation right now. So it's starting on social media. Then other accounts, a large number of accounts is spreading the information. But when we are talking about disinformation connected with the war in Ukraine, those numbers, the reach are not so big, so wide. So we are talking about thousands or tens of thousands, not more. viewers of single information. And then very often it happens that media take the information, then don't check the source, and they spread it even wider. And that's the point when the governmental institutions, or I prefer fact-checking institutions, needs to do something about it and inform people that this information is fake news. So that's how it works. And there are certain goals, very, very typical for disinformation in Poland connected with the war in Ukraine, with Russian war against Ukraine. So first of all, those accounts, those people try to convince our community, our society, that Ukrainians are somehow dangerous, you know, that they may change our culture, that they may take our jobs, that they make more difficult to get into the hospital, for example, that they use our Polish social care, social help instead of Poles, and that's danger. So that's one goal. The new one, very important one, is about elections. We will have elections in 4 days in Poland, very, very important parliamentary elections. And there is a new disinformation that Ukrainians who came after the war began, they gonna vote because they got a special number to have a chance to use social help in Poland. It doesn't mean they can vote in national elections, but there is a fake news that they can, and they may change the result of elections. So of course those fake news try to change who is responsible for the war, Russia or the United States or the West. So that's the next goal. They try to convince people that supporting Ukraine is somehow dangerous for Poland, and they also suggest that because of the historical factors, we shouldn't help Ukraine at all, because they murdered us in the past, so we shouldn't. They forget that it worked in two directions actually. So we are the one who should be blamed for murdering Ukrainians too. It wasn't a one direction thing, of course. So although all I said before, I think that disinformation against Ukraine is not the most serious problem in Poland right now. Why not? Because yeah, for example, medical disinformation is the biggest bigger problem in Poland. So a lot of people believe that, for example, medical companies which produce some medicines, they hide new medicines from us to make money for it, to make profit. And it's more popular than believe that United States are responsible for the war, or that we shouldn't be involved in helping Ukraine. The elections content is very, very important here, because we are in a big campaign right now in Poland. We are having parliamentary elections in 4 days. Then in 6 months we will have local elections in Poland, and then in 2 years' time we will have presidential elections. So we are in one big campaign for all those days. And supporting Ukraine was a topic of this campaign, but not the most important one. So there is a party called Confederacja, that try to use this argument, try to build their popularity on anti-Ukrainian sentimentals, but from my perspective, it didn't work. They are still trying. They didn't resign from it. I cannot say, although I wrote it, but I thought about it later, and I cannot say they resigned from this strategy. They try it. For example, a few days ago, in media discussions, the leader of this party said no social help for people from Ukraine. So they are trying, but you know, in Poland is quite difficult to do this, because we are one of the most pro-American countries. Because of the historical factors, we don't believe Russians. We don't like Russians, and that's the fact. It's not something I am proud of, but that's a fact. So it's very, very difficult to convince Poles that the West is responsible for the war, or the United States are responsible for the war. That means that we are more open for other disinformation, of course, because it works this way too. But this particular one is not easy to make impact in Poland. But still we need more research, more survey to learn more and to know how this information impact the way people think in Poland. And of course, we are having a lot of problems with this information in Poland. For example, only because for me it's only 12% of people said, agreed with, in one of the survey with the sentence, I can easily verify if information from outside the internet is true. Only 12% said, yes, I am strongly yes for that. I am sure, I am convinced that I can check whether the information is true or false. So we have a problem in Poland. The level of information skills are pretty low still. We are highly polarized society, so that's a problem too. All the information bubbles have their own media, you know. They read only one type of media. They are not open for other sources, so that's a problem too. We are also the society with very, very low trust to public institutions, and that's the problem too. And the level of emotions in public discussions is extremely high. So those are all factors which support disinformation, unfortunately. So my answer is that we need more education, and that's one way to do something with this, and I'm trying to do so, and there is more of us. But on the other hand, I believe in dialogue. I don't know if you know this Norwegian institution, Nansen Center for Peace and Dialogue. I think you should find it. I attended a 5-day workshop organized by them a few days ago actually. And it's something amazing. The method is to meet people from different information bubbles interested in particular topic and let them talk with each other. And that's the only task and the most difficult task, to make people to come, to invite people to come. And then they can talk, and there are some rules. So they shouldn't argue with each other. They shouldn't even comment their statement. They just should listen, ask question, think, and tell what they think. And it works. It's really difficult, but I believe it works. If we meet people from different information bubbles, if they meet each other, if they know each other better, if they understand better why they have this kind of beliefs, it will be easier to counteracting disinformation. I believe it in what I'm saying very, very strongly. Thank you very much.
One question.
Yeah.
You showed the percentages of people and who distribute false information and fake and so on.
Yeah.
We in Estonia, we follow sometimes people who distribute fake information, disinformation, and they don't know that they are doing this because they don't understand it's fake. They think it's life or this is media. Is the situation same in Poland?
Yes, it's very important. We have exactly the same situation. So one person or a small group of person build this information, and this is disinformation. But then it's changed in misinformation because a large group of people spread this information, but they don't know this information is not true. So they don't create this information. What they do is spreading misinformation, because there is a difference between disinformation created with the intention to mislead people, and misinformation when we spread information which is not true by mistake, because we don't know it's not true. And actually the skills you need to have to be resilient are the same if we talk about disinformation and misinformation. There is no difference. And those two are very similar, and they meet. There is a link between them if we talk about the way they are spreading on the internet. Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
After our last presenter, you have a chance to ask a question to everybody, so prepare questions. Inga Springe is from Latvia, and well-known investigative journalist. And in a way, I want to even call her guru. Disinformation.
Let's assume
not knowing the details.
Misinformation, not this, but mis.
And it's always good to know what close neighbors are doing, and maybe they have some problems too, not only we. Inga, please.
Don't worry, we always say that, we always compare that life in Estonia is better, so
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Inga Springe, and in one slide I will tell you why actually you need to believe what I'm doing, that I'm one of the gurus from Latvia. So I am co-founder of non-profit Investigative Journalism Center. We've been working for more than 13 years now. I'm surprised myself, we are still alive. We focus on two main topics. One is like inside social, corruption, and so on. And already 13 years ago we started regarding, that time it was Russia's soft power. Everyone was saying, why are you writing about these marginals? They are not important. Then Crimea happened and all the rhetoric shifted. And now that's why we've been following for more than 10 years of disinformation. We are also official Facebook fact checkers, which means that we are also one of the most hated people in the country, because we serve all bad guys and the global elite. And we are also members of two main investigative journalism networks worldwide. So it's a bit of credibility who we are. And actually, when I was hearing colleagues from Bulgaria and also from Poland, guys, we have all the same. Maybe a message is a bit different on platforms. In Latvia, and I think Estonia is the same. Facebook is important, but not so important. It's also changing in a way. So we have new other kind of networks and channels and methods coming in. Regarding Poland, all the same messages regarding Ukrainians, but I think regarding Ukraine, the content has gone a bit down, and instead we have old good one, the life is so bad in Latvia. Like it's the same what Russia was doing before all the war started, like disseminating this fate with a purpose to split society, to create distrust in local governmental organizations and institutions. And that's why I wanted today go a bit like in more deeper and analyze some more specific cases, like actually what you from Bulgaria, you were also showing some specific examples. So what happened when a war started? Like in Estonia, we also in Latvia, we shut down all Kremlin channels. No discussions anymore about freedom of speech. We know that Kremlin channels are not media. It's all stage, it's all performance. We can't compare it and say that it's media, because when you come to job, an editor is saying like what you need to write, it's not editorial freedom and it's not freedom of speech. In Latvia and Estonia, they shut down, I think like around 10, also different web platforms. or a bit more. In Latvia, we shut down 100. In my opinion, a bit too much, but okay, let's do it. But what we could see, and also what our security services have said, and what we can also observe, that this Russian propaganda shifted more to social media, because no one has banned Facebook, TikTok, and Telegram in whole Europe. So this is where they have been more now focusing on shifting their attention. At the beginning of this year, I was doing like disinformation overview on TikTok in all Baltic countries, and this is also where I kind of get some sense or feeling how things are acting now. And one thing is, you can see in Latvia, as I mentioned, we have Facebook. It's still quite popular, but now the main thing where people are getting all this, sorry, I would say this bullshit, it's on TikTok. And among all Baltic countries, in Latvia, TikTok is the most popular, and specifically in the age group around 45, 50 years old, which is always, we have the stereotypes that TikTok is only for young people, but actually we can see that now it has shifted. And as a result, last October we had elections, and my assumption is that that's why we have one TikTok party already in parliament, because they affected and got into their team one very famous TikTok influencer, and I think she also pulled, they were very active and really professionally working on social media, so they are now in the parliament. So when we were analyzing like who are actually the main super spreaders of all is so bad in Latvia, we came kind of to these kind of regular people. Like this guy, for example, he is a sailor, just a sailor. You will not find his real name on TikTok. He has several accounts on TikTok. He has an account on Facebook, but he was spreading messages like Latvia as a state, sovereign state, has never existed because from Soviet Union times, blah, blah, blah. And here goes again some kind of Russian propaganda style thing. And I interviewed him. He was one of the rare ones who agreed to talk for this report, which I was doing. And I was thinking, okay, you know, maybe just a useful idiot. I don't think he's an idiot, but you know the phrase useful idiot. And then, like a couple of weeks actually later, I suddenly saw that this guy, he's walking in the streets of Minsk in Belarus and telling how great life is in Minsk in Belarus, and with a touched microphone. I don't have hard facts, but I'm very suspicious that regular salesman, not salesman, but sailor, just goes to Minsk and is telling how good life is there. And we have several people who have done this. Or like this guy, he was the most famous Russian-speaking TikToker. In Latvia, he had like 4 million likes for his content, and he's also just telling how bad life in Latvia is and how good life in Estonia actually is, because he has registered his company in Estonia now, and it was so quick and so smooth. So he was promoting Estonian business. And then again, a couple of weeks later, we can see Delphi did a good investigation that the guy is part of bikers club Iron Bird. He traveled with his wife, they both are bloggers, to Moscow. They were showing on the way how they are going, how great hamburgers are in Moscow, how great it was like New Year's Eve. It was already during a war, how super cool it's all here. So again, sorry Ilya, I don't believe that you are just a regular blogger, that you afterwards you are part of this bikers club where is also high official relatives from Russia and Belarus involved, and you are just promoting Russia, how great it is, how life good is in Russia. Let's try to go further. So we also did like a top of most popular accounts, but I separated in Latvian and Russian language, but you can see immediately if the content creator is in Latvian, it's like only like hundreds of thousands likes in total, but Russian language, because it's so much bigger and it goes across the border, immediately these likes go much further. And again, like it's simple guy blogger, like housewife, Psycholya, it was her like nickname, or just a manicure meister Svetlana Shimane. Also, I tried to, they all go not with, of course, their real names, and they all are kind of saying, mi šučim, mi prosto balujem se. We are just like joking, it's all a joking. And I know why they are saying this, because from time to time they receive calls from Latvian security service, and we have around 40 criminal investigations for such kind of cases. For spreading hatred, and because a lot of this content is again Ukrainians against, but it's in this smart way, like I am not against I am for peace, I am let's stop the war, like against the sentiment that we can hear from. I don't support war, but I am for peace. I'm not on anyone's side, I'm just somewhere in between. But this is exactly what Russia's propaganda is doing. And then this is investigation we did also with colleagues from Estonia, and it just received also a prestigious Daphne Award for investigative journalism. It was cross-border collaboration where we got these materials about Kremlin's goals regarding Baltic countries. And there we could see that one of the projects, how they tried to unite and infiltrate again in international organizations, because Russia is kicked out of everywhere now, that they will take. And I think it's a very smart idea. The plan was to take really existing problem, like pollution of Baltic Sea, and then create and build around this platform to create conferences, invite people, again, like to get in all these international organizations to talk about this really existing problem. And why I was thinking it's so smart, because at the time I was doing this TikTok report, and then I thought, can you imagine if suddenly all these people would start to talk like, you see, or sea is so polluted and government is not doing anything, they are just stealing money, we really need to take care about this. And for us as a journalists and fact checkers, it would be so hard to debunk, because it's a really existing problem. Like, you know how propaganda works, you always take one real existing, there is some truth, and then you build the frame around like what you would want to do it. That's why I thought that these leaked documents which showed this purpose and plans regarding this Baltic platform, it was actually quite smart. Thanks God it was leaked. I assume there was some also goal behind why someone leaked it, but we kind of didn't allow it to happen. And it was on TikTok, and I would say again, we can think it's useful idiots or really some people who are, I don't know, paid to do it, because there have been information that now Russian propaganda has become more sophisticated. It's not so brutal like maybe in Bulgaria you still create some fake accounts or something. You give actually to real influencers to spread out the content. But in Latvia you can see that, yes, it's TikTok, it's for masses, but content actually comes from Telegram. Because for Telegram, it's not so popular for regular people, because you need to still, it's not so easily digestible. It's mostly written, there are the different channels, you need more effort to put in. And this is also a case. Just recently, our security services published this statement that they have arrested a guy, a taxi driver, who was actually delivering information to one of these groups. They call themselves Baltic anti-fascists, and they operate several Telegram channels. And this taxi driver, because he was driving to the airport and all these important objects, and he was also following and hearing what's happening, he was telling like which companies in Latvia support Ukraine, which people, for example, support Ukraine. And then this Telegram channel started, they create this account, which is later like disseminated. And this is another report also done by Digital Forensic Lab, which is wing of Atlantic Council NGO based in Washington. And my colleague from Latvia did this analysis, how actually this information in Telegram has been spread. Maybe you remember when we speak about local Kremlin channels, we talk about Sputnik, but you also have Balt News, and they are still operating. And again, with Estonian colleagues, 6 years ago, we did investigation showing that Balt News actually was financed by Kremlin. They received money on a regular basis, on monthly basis, and they received also topics they had to cover. But at that time, their reach was really miserable. They didn't have viewership. They even were buying like fake viewership to show the bosses to Kremlin that you see we are doing a good job. But now what they are doing, and I think now they're in a way succeeding, they have this Telegram channel where they create content, and then there are all these other accounts which are amplifiers, and they amplify this information, and someone also puts it on TikTok, and then it all goes viral on a TikTok. And again, you are not even able to find out where the original sources come. And to be honest, it's not only about that Russian speakers are doing. I think where we are also helping I mean like local also Latvians to Kremlin propaganda, is that local people also very easily jump on this, all is bad, you see how bad life is in Latvia. This post, we did a fact check, my colleagues did this week, it was viral. It was one kind of Latvian language Facebook group just published this photo and the sentence that Finland is announcing that they have finished to build the fence across the border half a year before it. And it was shared 1,700 times. And among them were also like really smart, intellectual people. And I posted it as example to say, you see, it's enough with one photo, make a line with a marker, and it will just go viral, because you don't have this ethical, not ethical, but hygiene of how to use social media. There is this 10-second rule. If you feel that you are angry and you want to start communicate or you want to share some information, think why. It means someone has manipulated with you. And in this case, do you know who is the source, where it is coming? But because there is already a background of all of this, all is so bad. Like, we live in such a bad country. Everything is so fake, and government is losers and idiots, and everywhere is corruption. People very easily go for this. So sometimes I think we even don't need to spread kind of anti-Ukrainian content. It's enough just put something out like this, and it's already split society. You go on Latvian Twitter, we can see that Latvia is ruled by idiots. Everyone is bad, everyone is stupid. And I think and this aggression which is coming from this, I think it's something which worries me. So to finish this, I wanted to show how Russia is now trying to disseminate. I have no hard facts, but I think how Kremlin is trying to disseminate their messages. And another concern, which if I will have time, I want to continue in discussion, is about the consequences. I can really feel and see this growing hatred among Latvians and Russians in Latvia, and I think it's very dangerous because it plays actually on what Kremlin wants, and it also might escalate some more conflicts among ourselves. Last sentence. We are working now on documentary as Baltica about split of society. And for last days, I'm sitting and transcribing interrogations, which were done by Latvian security services with people who are sentenced for writing these negative commenters, but regarding the hatred comments. And when and these investigators always like asked, why did you do this? Like a woman from one Latvian city, she works in the newsstand. Her salary is 300 euros. She is 22 years old, and she was writing on TikTok the Putina, letter Z, and all this one. And she said, yes, because one Latvian started to write me, you bitch, you need to die, and so on, so on. So I was angry, and I also went and started writing like this. This morning I was transcribing an interview with a guy who lives in this garage, you know, from Soviet times, this cooperative garage. He lives in garage. He doesn't have a place to live. He has 5 mobile phone numbers. He has accounts on all social media, Kontakte, WhatsApp, Facebook, TikTok, and so on. He's unemployed, 9 grade education, and all this. But do you know what happened in Donbass? Mis protiv banderovcev. He even uses this phrase, content. I create content against Nazism. And again, this hate just goes and goes and goes. And this is already a result. This is a result what I showed before, like of these messages which is coming. That's why it really worries me, because it's growing from both sides. Thank you.
One of the most important sentences in sentences in information warfare is that you don't understand that you are attacked, and you don't realize that you have lost. How it goes to the Latvian politicians? Do they understand the threats of social media, that it's constant informational attack from Russia?
No, I was just still stand. No, I think we understand. We understand that there is a problem, but maybe they don't understand this small nuance manipulations. That's a message you are saying. We also have the same that, okay, it's a bit different, but Norwegians are taking away your children, and politicians are repeating this message. And they think that they really genuinely, it's a real problem, and it comes from them. So they think that they understand, but actually I think they don't understand. But what's the biggest problem is that now our politicians are using the same methods what are using these conspiracy guys, what are using Russian propaganda, and I think it's also it's the same, more dangerous, because they are using the same methods by using this. How bad is everyone, to attack opponents, to attack people who disagree with them. And then Kremlin can even stand aside and don't do anything, because we among ourselves are already like making this clash, and the goal is done. Like, we don't trust to state institutions, we don't trust to media. We just trust some shitty Facebook.
Thank you. Please. And now, probably we will have a lot of questions from hall. If you don't, I will ask. I have a lot of questions. But anyway, I hope you have. Let's start. Yeah, thank you. No, microphone. Microphone is coming because we have the cameras.
Hello. So I have a question about Latvia. That recently the Latvian parliament made the decision to shut down state-funded Russian language media. So what are the potential ramifications of this? And what do you think about the idea that this could just push the Russian-speaking population further into the Kremlin-sponsored media sphere? And yeah.
So, welcome, I'm Kremlinist, because I'm the one who is opposing this one, and I receive such a hate. Because in Latvia particularly, Twitter has been taken out by, I'm calling them hardcore nationals, because I don't want to offend regular people who are really nationalistic and patriotic, but I'm the one of the faces. I even did some videos, videos regarding this topic, and I said that we can't shut down Russian-speaking public broadcaster right now, and the opposition people are saying like, no, we should stop serving Russian interests. It's enough. We should go all for Latvian. And my argument is this situation, it's not about convenience for Russians, it's about our security. We can't afford even more radicalize and leave certain group of people without information about what's happening in our country. Yes, maybe after 5 years, maybe after 10, 6, 8 years, because now we start to go on all language, in all schools should be in Latvian language, including like Russian schools. Maybe after 5 years, when we will have already this kind of first generation coming out who had studied only in Latvian language, maybe then when we can afford, but currently we just can't. But because we have such a harsh this movement and very active nationalistic trolls on Latvian Twitter, this is example how actually on TikTok, you can brainwash general people who don't have an understanding how they've been manipulated. But on Latvian Twitter, we have, I'm 100% sure, we have nationalistic troll army, anonymous accounts who are aggressively pushing and attacking another way thinking people, and they get impact. So I think many of things which we have done lately in Latvia and law changes, it's because of the result of these Twitter attacks.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. We got massive information about fake news in Bulgaria, Poland and Latvia. We got also a few little information about who are these people who are distributing this information, especially from Latvian speaker. But we don't got information why they distribute this information. What is the background of these people who are distributing information and how dangerous they are for these states?
Next, who asked the question, please say the name and who you are, because and then it's for camera. Please, who wants to answer?
I can have a go. It's very difficult to say who is behind where is the source? Where do you end the analysis? Is it the guy who lives in the garage and who has a 8th grade education and 2 million followers on TikTok? Is it some strategist in St. Petersburg who 5 years ago developed the strategy? So it's very hard to understand where do you end the analysis. That said, why are these people using it? Why are these people doing it? Depends on the incentive. Foreign governments like the Russian are doing it to destabilize society. My analysis goes to the most fundamental level is to attack trust in society. It doesn't matter trust about what. If it's something that people agree on, you attack it and you make people disagree on it. If it's something that makes people disagree, you pour more fuel into it and make people disagree more. Why? Because when people don't trust each other, they cannot work together and everything flows downstream. The concrete people, what motivates them? Some are doing it for money. Most, I think, are doing it out of conviction. These are the useful idiots. This is what every successful propagandist aims, to convince a large number of people to do it freely. So these are the useful idiots. Many are doing it for attention. My example with the Bulgarian journalist, all these fake comments, they were comments praising him for his work. And this is the tactic that the Russians have. If they see somebody who organically is sharing their talking points, they put a lot of fake profiles to praise him, to tell him what good work he's doing. This way, he gets some algorithmic love, he gets some dopamine hit, hey, I'm doing, people like me, and he does more of the same. So they're doing it out of conviction.
Yeah, I think that's the same. I think it's dangerous to think that all those people are paid for this. I think it's very, very dangerous. I believe, and I think it's wiser to think that some of them actually believe in what they are doing. And doing this, they share their values, actually. They are convinced of what they are doing and what they are saying. And my strategy, my personal strategy, is to have people thinking different from me on my Facebook, for example, because there are my windows to other information bubbles, and I learn a lot from discussing with them. Very often I cannot convince them, and if they are using hate speech, I block them, trying to explain why I'm doing this. But very often I know them better after this kind of conversation, and I am terrified because I know that they represent their beliefs, and it is even worse, I think, because if they are paid, it's quite easy, and it's quite easy to do something with that. But if they believe in what they are saying, it's very, very more complicated. We are still living in one country, so we need to talk about values, and the conflict based on values is very, very difficult. Yeah, thank you.
I think colleagues already explained it. Yeah, I think that majority are doing it because they really believe it, or they just automatically share because they become angry. It's also a question about how social media algorithm works. Their purpose is to show content which makes us emotional because they want us to spend time there. We think that Facebook and TikTok and Telegram is for free, but actually we know we are the product. They want us to be there. That's why they show us emotional content, and which emotion is stronger? It's negative emotions. There are research which shows that. That's why we see this negative content, and we, without thinking, that's why I talked about 10-second reflex we need to develop. We just get so emotional and we start like reacting, and this is when you like discover, oops, it's 20 minutes and I've been negotiating with someone, and you still know that you will not convince that person. You just become angry yourself and think everyone is idiots.
Okay, thank you. Please introduce yourself.
Hello, I'm Rusudani from Georgia. Now I am a student at the Estonian School of Diplomacy. As I realized today, this propaganda and disinformation is more effectively influenced on post-Soviet Union's countries. It's the same at our country. I have a question to Bulgarian representative. As you talked about that this pro-Russian social media effectively influence on people, I'm interested in what is the percentage and level of people who support pro-Russian party. I'm sure there is researches and a survey on this issue. Thank you in advance.
So they got around 15% at the last election. It's climbing. Estimated that this is the peak. And so they got 15% of the vote. On social media, they get between 60 and 75% of the attention. So all of the like shares and the metrics that I showed, 60-70% of the attention goes there. All the political actors in Bulgaria, translating to 15% of the vote. And they are. It's very interesting. They're contingent on the level of chaos that you have in the country. So, for example, we come out of a 2-year-long constitutional crisis with elections, parliamentary elections every several months, where they cannot produce a government. This makes these kind of actors who are contesting their post-truth, everything is going bad. It feeds into them. If there is stability, they get less of the vote.
I would like to ask a very complicated question. we always describe us as a victims, that we are under attack, informational attack, and how dangerous it is, and social media and collective Solovyov and so on. But maybe we are doing something good. Let's think that we are Russians or in Russia. What they should afraid. You mentioned value competition. Maybe we are winning somewhere. What we are doing good in this information battle between East and West. It's not easy. Inga.
But do you think, like, from what we are doing now?
What we as countries, nations, what we are doing, because we are not losing all the time. We are under attack, but we are doing something good because our values are there.
Yeah.
We have our countries, we have our rituals, we have our flags. Everything is working.
No, I think first thing what we still should do it. Like, I really am very worried about this all is so bad in our country sentiment. We ourselves should more promote ourselves. And you Estonians are better at this than Latvians. We are more self-critical about these things. But what I'm really very passionate and in what I believe, it's so-called this deep pre-banking method. I really believe in pre-banking, and I also heard in one conference from a Polish government representative how they are trying on international level for outsiders to explain how Russia works, that you actually don't go and this is also one of the truths, you don't try to debunk every fake news. It's impossible. You try to expose the source. You try to explain why someone is doing something like this. And what your foreign ministry was mentioning in that particular event, that they launched this pre-banking campaign where well-known Russians or international leaders were talking about how Russia works, what's their mindset, why they are doing this. Another example, which is always mentioned now in debanking from pre-banking example, is war in Ukraine. That United States and UK, secret services, they decided to come out and say that Russia is planning attack. It was also kind of, in a way, pre-banking, when you take out the weapons, already this surprise moment out of Russia's hands that you are doing in this way. And I think this is what I can see in a way countries are trying, and I know that also Estonian state chancellery, I've heard, that are thinking about this, that I think we should do it more actively, that we know there will be problem. We already can predict what kind of fakes will be created around it. It's so predictable, but we should come out before and start telling be aware of this, be aware of these channels, be aware of these messages, people who are spreading this. I don't know if it's not direct answer, but this is what I really believe, that we still need this debanking, we need fact check. I know that it's not so effective, but it's complex solutions. There is no one solution, but I really believe we should start doing more this pre-banking when we warn ahead something is going to happen.
Thank you. Maciej, what Poland is doing well, because we all have, I think, feeling that the image of Poland during the war has increased because very big support to Ukraine, and real military power. So what are you doing good?
I think it's changing all the time, this opinion about my country. Yeah, I think a lot of things change, Bless you. We have some courses for seniors, for example. We have more courses of media literacy for pupils. The group of adults is the most difficult to catch, those who are still working, because it's easy to catch teenagers and children at schools. It's quite easy. It's easier to reach seniors, and those adults are a problem. From my perspective, as a trainer, it was quite interesting to discover that very, very simple skills, which from my perspective should be well known, like searching information on the internet, are not well known actually. And on my courses, when I have different topics on 2 days course, this one were the one who were very, very popular. Yes, I thought it will take us 10 minutes, just to do this and tick it, so I gave the task, find the information, and it was a problem, for well-educated people. to do this. So that's what we need more, but I think it changed a lot. And what we need to improve in this method is evaluation. You know, it's long-term evaluation. So I think we need to check better which method is actually working, because many NGOs, I'm also an activist, are living from grants. And when the grants ends, there is no money for evaluation, long-term evaluation. And many organizations evaluate programs for donors. So they need to achieve the goals, actually, because they want to keep the money, sorry to tell it. So I think we need some more effort here. Yes, you asked me what we are doing good, and I changed the subject a little bit, but it's difficult to keep this perspective, actually,
Did you
especially
understand
about myself. And
how
ourselves.
difficult to say good words about yourself? It's very easy to say negative things about others, but Nikola.
Bulgaria is waking up, which is good. This is the this is great, but we as let's say the West democracies, I think it's a question of timing, and we are basically 10 years late to the game. So now we're starting to understand that this stuff is going on, that this stuff exists, that these new ways of communicating are affecting societies. Those guys, they know it from 15 years ago. We are starting to understand this. So it's just a question of catching up. But once we catch up, and thanks to events like this and to all the funding, courses, universities, once we catch up, we will be doing it better than them. You know, nothing is invented in autocratic countries. So.
Thank you. This the notion of waking society, I think it's quite important. Yes.
We also ask politicians what they are going to do with the topic. That's important. That's what, for example, fact-checking organizations do in Poland. They ask, for example, during the election time, all the parties what are their programs here, what they think about this information, and even if the answers are very, very wide and not strict to the point, this information is a topic, you know. It's getting more and more important, and that's a thing too.
I had time to think. We have one good thing, and I can even mention an example from yesterday. So we have also state cancellery. We have the Stratcom communication, which was 3 people so far, but they really has increased this year. And for example, I don't know, maybe you have heard that 2 days ago in Latvia was a huge kind of event. Some anonymous person sent out emails to 300 schools saying that there are bombs. So many schools were evacuated, there was a panic. And this guy who was sending out, apparently, he did it from Telegram channel, and he was posting there like threat letters, and kids among themselves were like sharing, and like, you know, it was fun and scary for them, and you know, it looks also quite disgusted, these messages. And so, for example, already like immediately yesterday, State Chancellery, together with one security expert, influencer, also a young woman, they did like already like immediately these kind of explanatory slides for social media. Because always it goes like, oh, we make a press conference, media talk about it, but the big minus, especially for ruling parties, is that they don't communicate actively on social media. Because they have platform to mainstream media, they kind of don't care about it. And that's why these populists are winning, because they are very good at social media. But that's why I like that all Latvian State Chancellery, the Stratcom team is really increasing, and they're planning these campaigns, and they are acting proactively already.
I would add one more thing. I think it's important.
I will find good things.
Yes. Yeah, it's difficult. I think we think generally about this information globally, because it's a global thing. But I know some programs. In one of them, I'm methodologist in a program. It's good to know. It's made by Information Society Development Foundation. And we try to help local leaders to build local partnerships against disinformation. Because from my perspective, sometimes it's easier to debunking disinformation from the local perspective, when the level of emotions is lower when the politicians are not involved in this big politics so much, and they, I will dare to say that, care more about public interest. And I think it's important, and it's important to invite, for example, to the project not one teacher from one school, but at least two, because I know this moment when my workshops are about to end, and people realize that they were in a very safe information bubble here together, and then tomorrow they will join their own communities and they will be alone with the new knowledge they got. And it's very, very hard to change something alone. So I think it's a very small thing, but it changed a lot. And that's the good thing I meet in many projects in Poland.
Thank you. I can't resist to say one good thing from Estonia too. And in Sunday starts, I think, 25 times already the highest defense courses of the state. 50 people and come together in 1 week. They are in a forest twice a year. And there are politicians, businessmen, religious, journalists, different groups, and they are sitting in one place 1 week and very high-level lectures. It's already 25 years. And to agree common values, it's turned to be very important, I think. And they're starting now on Sunday. Please, your question.
Thank you for the opportunity. My name is Bart Kozijn. I'm the founder of the Estonian Dialogue Academy, NGO. And one of my struggles, and I think you were showing this picture of in the metro, everybody using their phone. One of our programs is that we are teaching kids in schools skills for critical thinking and discussion skills. This morning I was working with a group of 15 kids and we were talking about the question, what is trust, for example, between two people? It's a question they came up with themselves. And I mean, I love giving these lessons and having these discussions with these children. When the lesson is over, immediately all the phones come out and everybody loses their attention from, let's say, the topic, the group discussion to our phones. Me, myself, I also sometimes feel I'm highly addicted to my phone. So the fact that we have this addiction and that every social media we are on immediately gets into our face and we are not used to this, like what you say, the skill of the 10 seconds, maybe we are not able to do that as humans. That worries me a lot. So like I'm curious, what are your thoughts on that? Because like banning phones won't happen. We need it too much. At the same time, we have such a difficult relationship with this computer that we are dragging around everywhere.
Very quick, it won't go away, so we should learn to use it and learn to communicate. I think the content that's coming out of Ukraine, they're very good at this. We should take example how to communicate. Every squad, every company is branded. They have their little logo. They put out videos of between 30 and 45 seconds, and it's predictable. So this kind of communication, and I have discussions with Bulgarian institutions, ministries, and tell them, you guys are not communicating. What do you mean you're not communicating? We send out an email letter. Do you think anybody, do you measure who reads your email letter? Nobody reads your email. We put it on the website. I cannot find it on the website. I know what I'm looking for. I cannot find it. And there is this gap that needs to be filled to, again, to fit into the 10-second rule. And no, putting it on your website is not communicating.
We have a question here. I'm sorry.
Yeah. Oh, there, please.
Thank you. My name is Annika Arras from Milton, Estonia. And my question goes to Nikola, but firsthand, because I'm a frequent visitor in Sofia. Oh. And you know, when I walk on the streets of Sofia, then I see a lot of Russian monuments. Even though you have Soviet monument museum, half of the museum is still around the city and also in other cities. And there have been a lot of tensions right now around the Mocha. It's one of the monuments in the center of the city. And we Estonians, we know what can happen with monuments. So therefore my question is, do you see any narratives or disinformation spreaded now, 3 weeks before the elections, that they would want to use this, the fact that there is actually a wish to take down Mocha?
Of course. So this has become a textbook dividing issue. So either you are for or you are against the destruction of the monument. There is no middle ground. So just for context, the Mocha is the monument from the grateful Bulgarian people to the liberating Red Army. It's a huge monument with the soldier, highest thing in Sofia, very, very present in the middle of the city. So there are groups that are there, they're trying to protect it. So there are people that are camping around, others that are there that want to fight with the people that are camping around. So it's generating a lot of emotions. We have tracked several narratives. So one is the historical narrative. So yes, we should be grateful to Russia because they liberated us from fascism. These are the classical talking points. There are other which are clear disinformation. So for example, some people are saying that there are graves underneath. And if it's a war monument, if it's a grave, it's a bit different. So you cannot destroy the military cemetery. So this is false. There are no bones underneath it. And actually, it's a good example that, amazingly, the municipality they have managed to kind of to ease out the tensions physically. First, they put a barrier around it. Then they said, okay, we're going to see if it's safe. And amazingly, it's not safe because one of the soldiers is cracked and it can really fall over. So it's indisputable. So there is a huge crack. And the most amazing thing, I cannot believe that they managed to do this and they got the idea. They put a banner in front of the monument, which actually doesn't hide the soldiers. It hides the base of the monument, which has these three of the historical development of Bulgaria, starting from prehistory and going to the European Union. And it's really nice. It's a nice visual, nicely made, and they covered the base. So they kind of contextualized it in a broader historical context, which is the first time I see such a good communication coming out from the government. Kudos. Yeah.
You know, I would add a little bit to this question. You know, we had a Bronze Soldier War in Estonia 2007, and it's still going on. And if we look at the basis of this conflict, we see that Estonian heroes are always in conflict with the Soviet heroes. It is the same in Bulgaria, or there is more understanding of, let's say, Soviet past or Russian past.
So the Russian past is very much part of the Bulgarian past because this propaganda is going on for a long time, even before the Soviets. Because Bulgaria was part of the Ottoman Empire, and the narrative is that the Russian army liberated Bulgaria because they love Bulgarians and we are fraternally people, not because they wanted to get the Straits right in Istanbul.
This is important to know. There was a question, I think. Yeah.
My name is Liia Hänni. I am from e-Governance Academy. Freedom of speech is a fundamental value of democracy. At least in Estonia, it took time to realize that Russian propaganda is not freedom of speech. Now we have a very serious debate about do we need to regulate the hate speech? And with this, even a reason for obstruction in our parliament. What is your opinion? Is it more risky to over-regulate hate speech or to leave things as they are? If we think about a split in our societies.
Thank you, Liia, for this question. You should know that Liia is a legend of Estonian politics, so please.
I used to say that yes, there is freedom of speech, but you should also take responsibility for what are you saying. And that's the thing that you can take responsibility for actions you are calling. I recently read also one kind of academical work that there is freedom of speech and there is speech act, which means if in your speech you are asking or encouraging people do some kind of action, then you should take responsibility for this. And there is again difference between Latvia and Estonia, because we have done stories about this. Estonia is kind of more flexible. You are not inclined to punish people. Because already during the COVID time, I'm using this as example always. I don't remember exact numbers now, but during the COVID time, for violating restrictions and not putting mask, Estonia, I don't remember exact year, it was like one particular year, Estonia fined there were 7 fines issued for not putting a mask. In Latvia, it was around, I'm very afraid now, it was more than 10,000 fines issued for not complying with these regulations. And Estonia's approach was like, it's better, it's more effective to give a mask than to fine for not having a mask. And this is also what we see regarding these hate speeches and what people are writing and saying. Like, as I mentioned, we in Latvia have at least some 40 criminal cases, investigations regarding what people have written on social media regarding Ukraine for, I don't know this phrase now, encouraging for a nationalistic hate for this kind of crime. And the same was like during the COVID time, we also find like really people who were like this total conspiracy guys who said like in one of the biggest Latvian hospitals, they are doing experiments with people and as a result people are dying. So Latvia kind of finds these people for consequences. You are sowing distrust and panic among the society, and that's why they were punished. Result, we don't know yet about these people who are writing about hate because it's still ongoing processes. It will be interesting how court will interpret these cases. But what we saw regarding conspiracy people, maybe Estonia's approach was okay, not fining them, because in Latvia all these guys has become even more popular. They are more active. They are using this sentiment, as you see, government is going after us, so it means we are true, and they are doing some experiments with vaccines and so on. So I think it's a very complicated issue, but as a journalist, I think we cannot let go and we can't accept aggression as normality, and it's like such a huge aggression now on social media. But we should be careful with this punishment. But there should be some punishment. Maybe not like putting people immediately in prison, but sometimes to get some nice slap. I mean, not physically, but virtually, yeah. It could be some kind of these warnings, like not to do so.
Got a quote of today's seminar. Thank you. Maciej.
Yeah, I'm a human rights activist. I consider myself as a human rights activist, and it took me a while to understand that hate speech can actually block someone's freedom of speech. So if one side is using hate speech against other, the second side is blocked. The right of freedom of speech is evaluated actually. So that's why I think that some regulations are needed actually, because if we don't have it and some people use hate speech, it's against the freedom of speech of some people, because they don't free. There are some people who don't think they are not strong enough to speak if the opponent use hate speech. So that's why I'm for regulations. But yeah, of course, it's very difficult how to regulate it.
Yeah, it's true.
So there is a nice saying: freedom of speech doesn't mean freedom of reach. And I think there is what's new in the current situation compared to the classical argument for or against freedom of speech. The problem is that the powerful emotions such as hate or disgust, also think homophobia, for example, they're used not as part of the message, but as a vehicle for attention, to get people's attention for a political platform. So all these actors and propagandists there, they don't want to make people angry for making people angry. They want to make people angry because this way they attract their attention and they use it to push their political platform. And this is what's new. And this is algorithmically mediated. And we should think about it when we think about regulation. So personally, I'm not against anybody can say whatever he wants. Just don't do it in order to game the algorithm, to game the platform, and to make everybody angry to get elected.
Ivar, last question.
Last short question, who will win elections in Poland? As some Polish politicians, they distribute nowadays fake news. And what is the impact of these elections on Ukraine war?
Yeah. That's a big question. We are having elections in 4 days on Sunday, and according to the survey, it's 50-50 actually. So it's really difficult to predict, and I know it's easy, but every voice is counting here, and that's true. I saw this information a few days ago. My voice doesn't matter, 7 million of women said. So that was one of the mem trying to invite people for voting. So I cannot predict it. It's very difficult to predict, and I think the result of this election will have a big impact on Ukraine, the war, and the future of Poland and my child, my daughter too. So, you know, I'm in big emotions. So, yes, when I got invitation here, I asked immediately, can I be home till Sunday to vote, because it's very important to be there and
you know, as the former TV guy, I have to say that I have now said the most common sentence in television. We are running out of the time. And, you know, I put last question myself. Last Friday, me with my wife, we started to plan the trip to Holy Land, that we should go there before death. And after 12 hours, Hamas attacked Israel. So now maybe not a good idea to go there. And my question is, what do you see the threats now in your countries? Is it, I don't know, like happened in Slovakia, the populists win, some unexpected turn in politics? I know it's not an easy question, but you as analysts, you have to see a little bit before. What are the biggest threats in your countries in the near future? Or, let's say, years to come?
No, sorry, I will repeat myself. I am really worried about this hatred which is growing between Latvians and Russian-speaking population, and that I really dislike that politicians from both sides are using this fear, and they are actually escalating this one. And I'm really worried, because it also escalates, and it makes... Today I read Wall Street Journal opinion piece that now it becomes kind of new normal to attack civilians. And I really don't want that new normal becomes this aggression and violence in generalization towards people who are not the same like us. I'm really worried about this one.
Thank you. Yes, I would say polarization, the same. So even if how we call it, the pro-democratic parties will win, they need to change the language of politics, because if they will take some kind of revenge on the society and they will treat their own voters as the only Poles, nothing will change, and the right-wing party will be back very, very soon. And that's a big threat in my heart, actually, because the mechanism of communication are the same, actually. So the scale is different, but the mechanism are the same on both sides of the political scene, and that's very, very dangerous.
So I'm very scared, because there is the active campaign to create distrust in institutions and in the democratic process as a whole. So people in Bulgaria, they don't trust the court, they don't trust elections, they don't trust the government, of course. And all this, the constant propaganda that is not good, that it's very bad, is addressed to, particularly to distrust in institutions. If this continues in several years, there is no more democracy if people don't trust the democratic process. So this is very, very, very scary.
So, hate speech, polarization, and distrust. Welcome to Estonia. We are like home. We're like home. Thank you very much for this presentations and speech. Thank you. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, we're ready for the next panel. However, the next panel is going to happen in Estonian. So if Estonian is not a language you speak, this is a good time to put on your headphones to get the translation of the panel. Ja jätkame siis nüüd siit juba eesti keeles oma tänase teise paneeliga Desinformatsioon Eestis ja vastupanu ehk vaatame, kui enne oli juttu teistest riikidest, siis vaatame nüüd natuke hoolsamalt Eestit. Ja me räägime paari sellise fookusega. Üks fookus on valitsusväline fookus, ehk me vaatame vähem seda, mida riigi mõttes valitsusorganisatsioonid saavad teha ja rohkem seda, mida on võimalik teha kodaniku ühiskonna poolt, aga ka mida on võimalik teha siis ettevõtete ja meedia poolt. Samuti me võtame sellise lahenduskeskse vaate, et mul on siin hulk erinevaid võimalikke lahendusi valmis vaadatud, millega saab siis valitsusväliselt desinformatsioonile vastu seista ja me saame nendest rääkida ja ma hea meelega selle arutelu käigus siin siis pakun ja kuulan ka erinevatest lahendustest, mida teie olete ellu viimas või mida te olete kuulnud, et on olnud tõhusad lahendused, et me saaksime nendest ka ühiselt arutada. Ja meil oli algselt planeeritud natuke vähem maskuliinne paneel, siia oli planeeritud ka Andras Iibak, kes kahjuks eile teatas, et ta on haigestunud, sest palju viiruseid on praegu ringi käimas. Aga kui ta saatis oma e-kirja selle haigestumise ja mitteosalemise kohta, siis ma seda e-kirja saates mõtlesin, et mille alusel ma siis nüüd seda e-kirja usaldan siin, et mul on ekraani peal selline rida karaktereid, seal peal on Andras Iibaku nimi, aga et tegelikult võiks selle karakterite rea mulle sinna ekraani peale tekitada põhimõtteliselt ükskõik kes ja siis millega alusel ma ometi seda infot usaldan. Usalduse teema tuli siit eelmisest paneelist ka juba üles ja ma arvan, et usaldusest me kindlasti ka selles paneelis saame rääkida. Aga minu nimi on Margo ja minu puutumus selle teemaga, mis meil siin praegu meie ees on nagu mitme nurga alt, et ühelt poolt ma olen Eesti Väitlusseltsi kaasasutaja kunagi olnud ja Väitlusselts tegeleb siis kriitilise mõtlemise ja argumendi ja väitlusoskuste õpetamisega ehk oskusega, kuidas struktuurselt kuulata ja kuidas kriitiliselt mõelda ja desinformatsioonile vastuseismisel nende on kindlasti nagu oma roll, kuigi siin on ka üks vastuolu, mida ma tahan kohe varsti tõstatada. Aga siis mitmel muul moel veel proovinud ühiskondliku arutelu kvaliteeti ja argumenteeritud arutelu kvaliteeti tõsta arvamusfestivali asutajate ringis olles näiteks. Ja Citizenos on üks siis selline e-demokraatia ettevõtmine, millega ma tegelen. Aga teiselt poolt me tahtsime tänast paneeli alustada ühe deepfake videoga. Ei jõudnud valmis kahjuks, aga mõte oli, et tuleb üks meist kolmest kõigepealt siin deepfake videona ja ajab mingit jama ja siis tuleme meie kolmekesi lavale. Aga ma ühe sellise ettevõtmisega olen siiski seotud, kus seda sama tehnoloogiat, mida deepfake'i jaoks kasutatakse hoopis nagu õpetajate tegemiseks, sellised AI avatar õpetajad. Nii et igal tehnoloogial on need küljed, kus on nagu positiivne ja negatiivne. Ühesõnaga, mul on mitu huvi ja puutumuspunkti selle teemaga ja ma väga ootan, milline meie see arutelu siin teiega koos saab kujunema. Aga ma ei ole kaugeltki üksi siin, nagu te näete, kaks lugupeetud arutelukaaslast on siin ka. Strateegilise kommunikatsiooni ekspert Ilmar Raak, kes Eestis tutvustamist ei vaja, aga ole hea, räägi siis enda puutumusest teemaga ka.
Jah, ma tegelikult oleks lootnud, et sa mind tutvustad, et ma teaksin, mis positsioonis ma siin esinen, aga
andsin väga laia.
Minu puutumus antud teemasse algab ajaga umbes 2014. aastal, kui üks Eesti selle valdkonna pioneeridest Uku Arolt tuli minu juurde ja ütles, et meil on vaja Riigikantseleis üks koht täita, et oleks vaja psühholoogilise kaitsega hakata tegelema. Ja kuna ma olin vahepeal või enne seda tema töögruppides siin-seal osalenud, siis ma läksin Riigikantseleis tööle sinna, kus sellesse osakonda, millest hiljem sai strateegilise kommunikatsiooni osakond. Ja ma sain aru, et see valdkond oli arenemisjärgus. Niimoodi, et see, kuidas me sellest saime aru tookord ja kuidas ühiskond sai sellest aru tookord, on sootuks midagi muud kui see, kuidas me seda täna mõistame. Ka nii, et mõnes mõttes on kõik palju segasemaks läinud. Nagu iga asi läheb segasemaks, kui sa detailselt vaatad sisse. USA armeel oli üks väejuhatus, mille ülem mingisuguseks perioodiks keelas strateegilise kommunikatsiooni sõna kasutamise, sellepärast, et selle nime all võis kõigest rääkida. Ja mul on teinekord tunne, et kui me räägime ka desinformatsioonist või vihakõnest, siis me peaksime need sõnad ära keelama. Aga vaatame, et me saame samast asjast räägitud, ilma et neid sõnu kasutaks ja võib-olla see sisu tuleb paremini välja.
Aitäh! Ja meie kolmas esineja tuleb meie juurde Delfist, Delfi uuriva ajakirjanduse ja faktikontrolli toimetusest, selle toimetuse juhataja Holger Roonemaa. Holger, räägi enda puutumusest ka.
Jaa, tere. Et meil on Delfi meedias, meil on 8-liikmeline tiim, kes me tegeleme siis nii uuriva ajakirjanduse kui faktikontrollidega. See faktikontroll, millega me tegeleme lisaks enda artiklite enne ilmumist faktikontrollile, on siis see pool, kus me faktikontrollime avalikult eelkõige sotsiaalmeedias toimuvat. Meil on selle jaoks 3 inimest, 2 Eesti, üks venekeelne Moskvast 24. veebruaril ära põgenenud faktikontroll ja Ilja Peer, kes igapäevaselt monitoorivad Facebooki, Telegrami, TikToki ja teisi sotsiaalmeediakanaleid ja siis üritavad nii palju kui võimalik faktikontrollida ja avaldades faktikontrolle asjadest, mis levivad võimalik viraalselt, neid on palju, ja mille puhul meile tundub, et nad on piisavalt kaalukad, et nendele avalik faktikontroll teha. Ja teisest küljest siis sama uuriv pool, et kus meid on 4-5 inimest, ja tihtilugu need rollid loomulikult kattuvad ka, et omavahel hästi palju seotud. Vabandust. Et ma olen uuriva, ja me tegelikult koos mitme kolleegiga oleme uuriva ajakirjanduse poole pealt tegelenud propaganda, valeinfokampaaniate, mõjutustegevuste uurimisega päris palju aastaid juba. Ma arvan, et esimesi olulisemaid uurimusi, mis me avaldasime, oli 2018. aastal, ehk siis praeguseks rohkem kui 5 aastat tagasi, kus meil siis õnnestus tõestada, mismoodi Eestis, Lätis ja Leedus töötas Baltnewsi uudisteportaal, mis ise ütles, et ta on täiesti iseseisev uudisteportaal ühiskondlikel ja meelelahutuslikel teemadel, kohalike venekeelsete kogukondade mitte harimine, aga uudismaailmaga kursis hoidmine. Ja meil siis õnnestus tänu ühele väga huvitavale kohtuasjale saada enda kätte dokumendid, mis näitasid, et kuidas iseseisev uudisteportaal ei olnud mitte üldse iseseisev, vaid selle rahastamine käis läbi Hollandi, Serbia ja Küprose varifirmade, mille jäljed tegelikult viisid otse Moskvasse, Rossiasse, Vodnjasse, kuidas me saime need lepingud enda kätte, me nägime, kui palju raha igakuiselt sinna Baltnewsi kätte anti. Ja nad ei olnud ka sisu valimises, nad ei olnud mitte kuidagi iseseisvad ja sõltumatud. Iga päev hommikul tuli Moskvast õigelt inimeselt Skype'is nimekiri, kas selle enamasti oli 5, mõnikord oli rohkem teemat, milles siis need Baltnewsi peatoimetaja Aleksandr Kornilov, kes tänaseks on Eestist välja saadetud, pidi valima vähemalt 3, mida ära teha, mida kajastada. Ja need teemad sellel ajal, mida need puudutasid, olid Kreeka finantskriis, pagulaskriis, see, mismoodi USA-s või Euroopa riikides mingi pseudoküsitluste järgi ühiskonnad ei usalda politseijõude, kõik see tüüpiline, klassikaline polariseeriv asi, et see isegi ei puudutanud niivõrd otsa seda, et mismoodi siin Eestis mingit polariseerimist tekitada, aga eelkõige just rahvusvahelisemalt Euroopa Liidu, NATO ja võtmeriikide suhtes. Et sealt algas minu selline uuriva ajakirjanduse teekond propaganda ja mõjutuskampaaniate uurimisel.
Ma tahan siia kohe juurde ütelda, et minu meelest see, mida te Delfis teete, ongi kõige parem lahendus kogu sellele temaatikale, millest me siin praegu räägime.
Kas lõpetame selle paneeli ära, nagu ju?
Ja seda sellepärast, et kui mina alustasin Riigikantseleis, siis me saime aru, et ükskõik mida riik antud teemal ütleks, sellele kohe laskub peale vari, et tegemist on Tööministeeriumiga, tegemist on tsensoritega ja nii edasi. Ja meie omakorda saime aru, et ainukene võimalus üldse, kuidas see teema ühiskonnas mingisugust mõju leiaks, on see, kui kodanikuühiskond, kui eraalgatuslikult nähakse samasuguseid probleeme. Ja tänase seisuga ma arvan, et Riigikantselei roll selles vallas on oluliselt juba väiksem kui Eesti meedial.
Aga sa kutsusid meid enne üles rääkima ilma selle mõisteta. Ma korra siiski tahan selle sõna juurde tagasi tulla, sellepärast, et see sõna ei ole desinformatsioon, see ei ole eestikeelne sõna ja seetõttu ta olemuslikult ei pruugi nagu tekitada meis kohe seda tähenduspilti. Selleks, et meie ülejäänud arutelu oleks sisukam, peaks panema sellele sõnale mingisuguse piiritluse. Ma arvan, üks selline oluline piiritlus, mis ma tahaks saada, on see, et kas desinformatsioon on alati vaenuliku välisriigi poolt juhitud, nii nagu sa rääkisid sellest Baltnewsist, või on tal mingeid nagu teisi mõõtmeid ka, kus ta ei ole ainult riikide vahelise konflikti relv?
Ma võin alustada võib-olla Ilmar jätkab ja kindlasti siin saalis on kedagi, kes on akadeemiliselt ja terminoloogiliselt võib-olla varemini kursis, nii et võite kohe sekkuda, aga desinformatsioon ei ole ainult vaenulik riigist, riikide vahelt või state actorite poolt tekitatud ilming või vahend, et desinformatsiooni annab kategoriseerida mitut pidi, see on teadlikult loodud levitatav valeinfo. Üks võimalus seda kategoriseerida on siis formaatide kaupa, et näiteks, et kui ongi mingi süvavõltsing või sama deepfake, millest sa räägid, see on üks formaat, mis ta võib olla, eks ole, teine formaat võib olla lihtsalt
Another format can be false context. Clickbait can be one format. But when we speak about government actions, it's motivation, or state level, and then it's motivation. Why do people spread disinformation? And an important motivator here is national interest. This is where we now start talking about information warfare. There may be business interests. For example, during the COVID pandemic, we saw quite a lot of cases where COVID negators started selling fake vaccination passports. On the one hand, they said, don't vaccinate, but give me 30 euros and I'll give you a passport which says that you have. There are conspiracy theoreticians. Some people actually believe in what they're doing. And where these roles are not so clear-cut is a will to belong somewhere, this human need for attention. And this is the place where we can take advantage of people who have a need for attention, and you can make them do something that they will serve some purpose that you want them to serve. During the pandemic, there were so many COVID conspiracy theorists. Aivo Peterson was one of them who started out as a COVID skeptic. And when the war in Ukraine broke out, then this COVID skeptic turned into an anti-war character. Or they became people who claimed that the war was not real. This was my point of the question. Are there other possible agents behind disinformation? And you actually mentioned quite a few groups. So propaganda is something that, or anti-propaganda is something that has to do with Russia here in Estonia. But going back to theory, there is a differentiation between disinformation and misinformation. Misinformation is spread by mistake or an honest mistake. I think I'm telling the truth, but actually I made a mistake. This is what misinformation is about. And when we look at the reasons behind it, then throughout history, people have made jokes. One of the best known, perhaps, is how in Estonia there was a joke about Finnish marks, and the joke was made on TV, and people rushed to the currency exchange points to actually change Finnish marks. It was a prank. So going back to theory and terminology, and my theory is that to understand another person, the prerogative is that you believe that the other person has some sort of a will that you understand, and even without words, you understand that. And what disinformation does is it tries to sort of change this primary will to communicate. Listening to the previous panel, I had an idea, actually several ideas, but there are some that I would like to share with you, and I would like to give you food for thought. I listened to Nikola making his presentation, and he said that disinformation is, the point of disinformation is to destroy trust. Whatever people trust in the country, disinformation tries to destroy it. So I started thinking that training of critical thinking does the same. It says, don't trust, but check. So what does society need more? Do we need to create more trust or more mistrust? Those who try to be resilient against disinformation say that you can't trust, and the other party as well. What ideas did you get from the previous panel? I think the final goal of saying don't trust can be different. If the people spreading disinformation want people not to trust, for example, politicians or the media, or don't trust the opinion leaders, don't trust scientists, they want that to be the result. They emphasize that, and very often quite virally. What we try to do through our media literacy training and critical thinking training is don't automatically trust, but think what you have to do to make sure that you can trust. So you should reach a point where you find things that you can trust. So this is possibly the difference between those who spread disinformation and those who teach critical thinking. Very often people at these trainings ask, what is the thing that I can trust? What is the source of trust in today's society? So I think this is actually a good question and a good topic to raise. I should come back to the topic that was mentioned before. This is the sense of belonging. And the criterion for truth for us is what our favorite community considers to be the criterion of truth. An example on hate speech. Somewhere in South Estonia, there was a class reunion, and two guys meet after a while, and one supports EKRE and the other the Social Democrats. They support different parties. They used to be desk mates, and all of a sudden they represent different parties, and now they belong to different communities. They were classmates at this event and not supporters of two diametrically different parties. When they were in the sauna and discussing world issues, including marital equality and other important topics, then there they reached a compromise. Yes, well, if you look at things this way, then yes, maybe. And they understood each other. The big question is, when the supporter of the Nationalist Party, the Conservative Nationalist Party, slept on it and went hunting with his other friends, did he speak about what happened in the sauna or not? Probably not. He knew that these friends would expel him from their circle of friends. So this community pressure determines a lot. Back to the disinformation topic, one of the biggest paradoxes that has been noticed about disinformation when researchers have been carrying out and fact-checking organizations is that facts are checked by people who are ready to accept that the facts are overruled. The supporters of Trump never checked facts that would have shown Trump in a bad setting, but they did check all the facts that were possibly harmful to the opposing party. So people continued living in their parallel worlds. If we can't convince the other side in a polarized society with the help of facts, why do we do this fact-checking? So, now coming back to critical thinking, we should at least be reasonable enough in our own community, in our own bubble, that we don't go too far in our sort of idealistic cavalry attack. We have to look at our own mistakes, we have to acknowledge our own mistakes, and we need critical thinking to find mistakes in our own actions and ideas. By way of remark, I'd like to say that in fact-checking we don't define as our goal to check, to sort of convince someone who is diametrically opposed to, for example, topics related to the war in Ukraine, the COVID pandemic, or whatever topics are there. We do not make it our goal to convince the hardcore believers who think diametrically differently. But we're not doing the fact-checking simply to... We check the facts not by way of entertainment simply, but we want to educate people who are not exactly sure. And we want to make sure that people who don't really know about something, maybe they have been to that sauna and then went hunting with their friends and they are not sure about something. We don't know whether it's 10% of our readers, or I don't think it's more than 40 or 50%. So this is the target group for whom we do the fact-checking. Those are people who haven't made up their mind yet. This is our target group. Perhaps we are simply comforting ourselves with this, but I think this is where our work has the best results. But let's see what people in the audience can describe as their experience. This is my question for you. Can you raise your hand if you know that at least once in your life you have been a target of disinformation? You have seen information targeted at you and you know it's disinformation. Please keep your hands up. If you think this happens at least once a month, then keep your hand raised. At least once a month. If at least once a week you are the target of disinformation, keep your hand up. And who believes that you are the target of disinformation every day, then keep your hand raised. A few hands are still up. Thank you. I thought that perhaps there are very many people who are a target of disinformation on a daily basis, but so what do you think? You said it's different to say what the percentage is, but what do you think overall? What would be a good result when you look at this picture here in the audience? What's the biggest risk when you think about Estonia and concrete solutions? This has also to do with Raul Rebas's question at the end of the last panel. So from the point of view of Russia, for example, what are we doing well? There are many experienced sociologists here in the audience who know these figures by heart. But when the war broke out, I regularly followed these research results. On a monthly basis, there were surveys carried out that gauged society's attention towards Russian propaganda, and what we saw was that when at the beginning of the war, the percentage of the Estonian Russian language population who didn't trust Estonian media and who trusted Russian media was, if I'm not mistaken, around 30%, maybe 28, 29. Then quite fast it decreased. I stopped following it about a year ago, these surveys, and it had reached about, I think, about 12%. So this means we're doing something well. And as Inga said in the last panel, that one of her greatest fears was playing on polarization and opposing the different communities in the society and turning Russians against Latvians and so on. I think in Estonia the situation is better than in Latvia, but I think it is a big threat. We still see phenomena related to that. For example, last weekend in Tartu, under 17-year-old boys had a football match. Tartu Tammeka and FC Football Club Levadia from Tallinn. It was Estonian boys. And they went to the parents of the Russian language players and started calling them names and so on. And there was this Yaruski incident 2 or 3 weeks ago when people started putting these stickers on their car windows. So these phenomena do exist in Estonian society. There are conflicts between the different language groups or the different national groups. So these are the places that the Russian propaganda system automatically will use. Behind the Ya Ruski campaign or this incident, was a guy from Lasnamäe who likes BMWs, especially older BMWs, and he has been convicted for beating up his girlfriend, among other things. He simply created a Telegram group. It started growing. People started to putting these stickers on their BMWs. And so that's when the Russian influencers found that campaign, and they started amplifying this. And I think the same happens to this football incident. Some populist political initiatives will also benefit from that.
What do you think are the biggest risks in Estonia for you? Well, everything has been mentioned already, but I would prioritize polarization maybe. Not due to the fact that somebody is actively working on the information campaign side, but rather polarization is on the grassroots level. It takes place slowly. Nobody really understands how the earth is moving, so to say, how the grassroots are changing. But when I think about what has been done well, then I see that on very different levels, people have understood the theoretical framework of things that doesn't really prioritize fact, truthfulness, or precision related to the facts. But rather, when we talk about national institutions, they are looking at what is the impact of things. We need to correct the facts. This is what we need to do, but this is just half of the work. The other half of the work is related to the social demand. There is demand for the social movement, and the fact that people believe in disinformation shows that there is a demand for such a truth. Otherwise, that truth would not spread that way. Are you saying that we could really bring about positive senses of belonging without people feeling the need for opposing sense of belonging? I'm not saying that. I think it would be a bit naive. If you were to ask me what would be the best method against disinformation, then I'd say that let's all hold hands and let's sing about butterflies and flowers. It could happen, but we don't really take each other's hands because we don't like each other enough. Let me give you a couple of examples of the theoretical understanding that people have. On the national level, we have a reserve structure called the Communication Center, which only convenes when there is a crisis. And then there is more need for communication. Why? Is there more need for communication? Because when a crisis breaks out, there are different inquiries, both from the journalists and the citizens. They come in dozens of times more than during times of peace. And things get most out of hand when we are unable to give answers. And if you don't provide an answer yourself, somebody else will do it for you. Now, as for the communication center, it is important to understand that disinformation, like any bad information operation, works on two levels, on the longer-term perspective and on the short-term one. In the longer term, it is almost impossible to change something at once. It's like thinking of holding hands. Well, we are not going to. Rather, what we can change is we can reduce the risks that are created for the shorter perspective. For example, if somebody is beating our guys over there, come to the streets. Maybe this is a topic that we can quickly respond to and inhibit from happening and say, let's not go and start fighting on the streets ourselves, because there are reasons, and these are the following. And then we can get a quick grasp of things. we can see that there are the so-called strategic officers. There are the lower level soldiers, both in the military and in the civilian life, that can cause an important mess that has a strategic importance. For example, burning the Quran in Stockholm, which might inhibit the country's accession to the NATO, or at least slow it down considerably. Now we will come to the solutions soon as well, but let me first take a look at how is the situation with disinformation. Has it changed? I think that groups of people and the systems and the society are able to adapt to different threats if they are given enough time for that. It seems that disinformation as a word comes from the 1970s, the 80s, maybe even from earlier times. I am sure that all the bigger military conflicts in the 20th century all had counterparts that throw out brochures from the airplanes to distribute to people. It has certainly escalated. People are being reached by different information channels. One of the problems is that the ways for disseminating information are developing so quickly that we are unable to keep up in terms of defense mechanisms and in terms of what we are used to as a society. When I was preparing for the panel, I feared whether the next disinformation campaign would come about by using the language models. In the society, there seems to be a bigger than average trust towards language models. At least I see that in a school as a teacher, when I work as a teacher in a school. Do we really see more disinformation now? Do we see changed disinformation, or do we see technological advancements so that we are unable to keep up with people and the social systems? Holger, let me ask you, do you have more work on your hands? Yes, we do, and we would need more people to do it all. I don't really remember all the options you gave me, but I didn't believe in option number 2. I did find examples from real life related to options 1 and 3. Of course, there is more disinformation, and people are more aware of how to use it, use modern social media platforms and algorithms to disseminate it. For example, shortly before our panel started, I saw that the European Commission's Commissioner Thierry Breton was on Twitter. He published that Twitter, or X, has responded to the European Commission in terms of why there is so much disinformation on the X platform related to the war between Israel and Hamas and the related events. In the beginning of the war in Ukraine, I started to categorize some examples or gather materials related to disinformation there, but the amount of disinformation we see with the current events in Israel with Hamas, we see disinformation coming from the Russians, from the Americans, starting from using videos from computer games. For example, they see how an Israeli helicopter has been shot down, which is completely different. Nobody currently knows what's happening, and the US President Joe Biden had to refute claims that there are videos that show children being beheaded. There is such an immense amount of disinformation out there right now. I believe that Twitter is currently the worst example. During the times of Elon Musk, Twitter has gone through major changes. A year ago, or in the old days, so to say, a year ago, the blue marks were given to people who were either high-ranking officials or someone else against whom the level of trust was high. But now the situation has changed completely. You pay $8 a month for having this blue bird or blue tick next to your name so that you can seem trustworthy, you can post whatever you want to. And what is more important, the algorithm automatically amplifies or proliferates your tweets, and we can see how much this is consciously being used by the disinformation campaigners. I don't know how many of you use the Twitter. I still am a user of Twitter. I held my hand up the whole time you were asking me the question of whether I'm being exposed to disinformation once a week or every day. I am their target every day. This is a platform they're using. This is not the problem in Estonia alone. Disinformation is never bordered by a community or bordered within a community. No matter whether we are talking about political conflicts or wars or COVID or chemtrails in the sky and disinformation, disinformation is a networked global phenomenon. Absolutely, technology plays its role here. And hereby I must say that technology has democratized mass communication. Before, the editors-in-chief were the gatekeepers, and they had to make sure that not all rubbish ends up in the masses. Now we must admit that people are different. Not everybody is a nuclear scientist, but those who are not, they are currently talking about nuclear physics. Or we can substitute nuclear physics with other words. I think I know what you're referring to. I find it is a major issue in sociology. There are several studies that were started back in the 1970s and 80s, and they show a deeply a big hike in polarization in mid-2000s. One of these surveys showed the US bipartisan attempts to reach some decision, or they showed also how bad of an opinion somebody held of their opponents. In the 1980s, the extremes were extremes, but basically you could also acknowledge your opponent. Then sometime around 2005 and 2006, when social media took off, the acknowledgement of an opponent fell considerably. And at the same time, we see, when we look at the society, that polarization or unacceptance of the other counterpart is spreading. Social media is the only platform here. Or what other phenomenon would you link to the mid-2010s? What other medium would you link there? Well, it is social media, and then we know what we are talking about here. Yes, social media and the phones. During the previous panel, there was an idea uttered by somebody in the audience saying that we are not going to throw our smartphones away, which means that we either need to give the society time to adapt, and by time I mean that people who are reading a hard copy of a book, they can distinguish between rubbish and trustworthy information. At least they know what is the source of information for them in order to get the higher quality content. The very same people can easily share disinformation online because they have not had the time to get to know, or they don't have the habits in the culture either to distinguish between high quality and disinformation. We can proceed to solutions from here. What are the possible extra-governmental solutions related to the growth in disinformation or the changes in technology, and how to manage disinformation? If you were to choose one thing that you most believe in, or that you are able to prove the best as an extra-governmental solution in the fight against disinformation, what would it be? Or what is it? I know of two things that function against disinformation as inhibitors of hostile attempts. We must understand that we cannot stick the gin back into the bottle. It is as old as the world is. But we can manage the gin that is out there and reduce the possible damage. The first thing that we see is that time very often tells whether it was truth or false. For example, in 2015, when the European refugee crisis also reached Estonia as a huge panic, then there were stories spreading saying that at night time there are planes landing in Tallinn airport with black guys being taken by buses to remote areas in the country and hidden there. 8 years later, we can say that the black guys are not here. Probably they did not arrive. The time proved us that we were right. Actually, this is one of the main rules for resolving a social crisis. You need to slow the process down. When you think slower, then you might see a bit more. And then the environment starts to make sense for you. When you understand that the black guys are not here. For example, I have activated a function that when I press the send button after finishing an email, the system waits for 10 seconds before it actually sends the email. And then I thought that what would happen if we were to install a similar gadget on social media and sharing on social media, that it waits for 10 seconds before it shares something. It's not a bad idea because it emphasizes how you are responsible, but how can we recognize this information? For example, my habit is that when I read on our mainstream media something that is completely unexpected for me, then I think, let's hold our horses until tomorrow and then look again. When a journalist phones me up and asks me to comment on it, then I say I cannot comment on it right now because I don't know too much about it yet, because it's not enough what I heard in the media. So slowing it down, you're saying? Yes, slowing it down is one thing. As for the sci-fi or the pink wishful thinking, but it is something that I do believe in. I think that disinformation is always related to the hate speech as well. These topics are interrelated. Before the war in Ukraine broke out, I visited Ukraine through the Estonian Eastern Partnership projects to organize workshops with the local journalists. Workshops were about disinformation. And during my visits to Ukraine, I understood that our solutions that we proposed were like half ready. Because we could see that although we were proposing solutions, our counterparts were just swearing at us. They had started to use hate speech. What would be the solution? The tough solution, taking baby steps, is that if we can find some common ground with the counterpart, then we should be finding this ground. We should be taking the steps, because only then we can create an identity within which we can converse. If we just converse and say that you are not right, then we are speaking on different platforms and there is nothing in common for us. Let me give you another example that gives me a bit of a hope in terms of polarization in Estonia. I'm a member of the Defense League. I belong to the Toompea list of the Defense League members, and I find it interesting that we have representatives from different political parties in our Defense League group there. And there is a rule that we are not allowed to talk about politics when we are doing some exercises. And we are really able to refrain from that. And when the exercises are over, then I'm really amazed that I've been able to converse with different political party representatives, although some might be complete or seem complete bastards to me, but they have seemed totally normal during the exercises. I know that, Holger, for you, fact-checking is one of the best solutions. I don't know whether it's the best one, but it's certainly one of the quickest ones. You were saying that when a person is reading a hard copy version of a book, then they might assume that what is written in the book is correct. I would doubt it, because when we look at what the bookshops are selling and what are the bestsellers, how much of the pseudo bullshit and conspiracy books are out there, then I think that the responsibility also lies with the publishing houses and the bookshops for sure. I wouldn't speak that critically of the newspapers because I'm an interested stakeholder here. But another thing I would like to say is that we need to give time. One of the technologically interesting topics we needed to resolve was that there was this leakage theory related to COVID, that this virus leaked from a lab in Wuhan in China, and then we were checking really the facts a lot. The conspiracy theory started to typically spread. President Trump was also spreading it. There was no fact supporting this theory. And different intelligence authorities from the US started drawing up reports saying that it is not excluded or it is possible, or some are saying that it is the main reason. Once again, there were no adequate facts provided, other than an assessment by an intelligence authority. We needed to start correcting our fact-checking materials and say that we were wrong, and not only we, but the whole fact-checking community around the world. And we took some time to discuss it and say that we're not going to correct what we wrote. We published a new article on the situation that had changed in the meantime. At that time, a possible theory was spread as a conspiracy theory supported by facts or said facts. And we said that the new information does not change the fact that at the time that other information was certainly disinformation. I would say that fact-checking also is slightly linked to the national systems. I'm not that aware of these systems, but I find that media studies in the Estonian education system has not spread evenly among the schools. There are teachers that are fluent in media studies in some schools. There are many schools that have linked media studies to Estonian language and literature lessons, but it is not a separate subject as such, which also means that the teachers providing media education lack the corresponding education, because for them it is just an added task that they need to do. They provide media education to their students. I find that critical thinking and media literacy taught in schools would be something that would be beneficial for us in a couple of years, or would bear fruit. I think that if I were to work in institutions, I would start from there. Yes, and another abstract thing is related to the government and the national institutions and transparency, public information, what is disclosed information, what is not. For example, the events linked to Baltic Connector. I find that it is a good example. If we were to compare it with what happened to the Nord Stream explosion, Germany, Denmark, did they comment? How did they comment? Currently, when I look at how Estonia and Finland have behaved linked to the Baltic Connector, they have been quite open about what they have seen on the photos and the videos, disclosed some of the details, have kept people abreast of things happening, and this will eliminate or reduce disinformation from scratch, largely. I find that the more open, the more transparent the state and its authorities are, and the more access people have to information, either they are citizens or journalists, the less room there is for disinformation. And I would say that there is also a rule. Back in the day when the government office was accused of creating the truth ministry, then I came up with a criterion that if people were to say that the state is not allowed to speak at all because the state is a representative of institutional evil, then I would say that the state is only allowed to have a word if freedom of speech is guaranteed in the society when all the other voices are equally legitimized.
Checking facts is useful and it works, but when we spoke before the panel, then we said that there were, in the last panel, pre-banking was a term used. We don't even know if it has a good Estonian term. Is pre-banking something that could be one of the tools to fight disinformation? Could it be a solution for what Ilmar mentioned, that you don't deal with the outcome, but you try to preempt it, to look at it before it happens? I think pre-banking is not something that is just related not just to media. It's a tool that can be used by different interest groups, civil society, state institutions, and so on. One of our work groups deals with disinformation, research, investigative journalism. We have fact-checking on things that have been published. And then a format that we have every other week, we issued a podcast where we disclose disinformation, where we don't speak about fact-checking, but disinformation narratives. And we have also covered pre-banking. For example, during the energy crisis, we looked up people who explained how these things work, what the situation is in reality. This didn't have to do with disinformation, but it was just about disseminating real facts and informing people about different issues in society and to reduce fears and the spread of fear. So this is what journalism should do. So we have now added this term pre-banking to it, but this has existed before as a preemptive method. This topic reached state levels most acutely a couple of years ago in Estonia when we had this ID card crisis. People believed that there was a security issue and software had to be updated. And the team who dealt with the issue at the time realized that in order for society to change the software, they had to be explained a lot about IT. IT terminology had to be explained, but time was critical, and we realized that people only take in the information that they already have beforehand. They usually take in simplified information, and that can be misleading. So this is when we thought about preemptive communication in crisis situations, or pre-banking, when we speak about national crises or crises where the government has to get involved. Then different institutions train for different scenarios, serious scenarios, but they don't talk about it publicly. Because if we speak about it publicly, then the media will ask, excuse me, is something coming? Is this going to happen? Are you waiting for it to happen? I have a real-life story, Mattias Karlsson, from the Swedish newspaper. We have worked with him on several occasions, and recently we spoke about what the media does when there are no big topics. So last autumn, they were in their editorial office and they were thinking, what shall we do? And they decided we will take topical issues and start doing sort of slower news media. Swedish defense plans, accession to NATO, and so on. So the journalists started looking at the defense plans, and then they published an article saying that when war breaks out, this is where the mass graves will go. This is where the mass graves will be dug. So this is how open you can get about such information. So in Sweden, this is a next level openness and transparency, of course. When we speak about transparency and openness, then in Sweden, when a government official who doesn't disclose information to you receives higher punishment than for disclosing the information for disclosing classified information by mistake. So this is a completely different approach than in Estonia. Here, the by default approach by the government is that documents are classified. Very often it's for 75 years, and that's it. Actually, it should be the other way around. The state has to be open and transparent, and only in special cases some things are classified. There will always be things that need to be classified, but the by default approach should be different. We have been focusing too much on state issues and national issues now. But I can see that the other side of the coin is very much related to civil society, because who else is there to demand transparency and openness from the government than the civil society? Active citizens. And this is definitely a role that the civil society can play to demand transparency and resilience to disinformation. Of course, state institutions can be proactive about it, but this is a good place for civil society to step up. We would like to hear comments or examples from you would like to know what kind of solutions of resilience to disinformation you have in your heads, in your organizations. I was asked to train women's volunteer defense organization, and they were doing in local communities regional information resilience training courses. And I was asked to participate. So the point was to teach people how to identify disinformation, how not to spread it, etc. So what do you think about such really grassroots initiatives? Do you believe in such solutions? Can citizens, basically on a voluntary basis, help solve the problem? First of all, when we speak about disinformation, we need to understand that this is information war or warfare. When we think about traditional warfare, then we have different types of weapon. We have airplanes, cannons, rockets, and so on. Different types of army. All these different types of warfare are needed to win the war. In the information warfare, I would like to say the same. Fact-checking does not change a lot about attitudes in society, but you can't do without fact-checking. So all the solutions that we come up with helps to reach the goal. We need to have cooperation between the different approaches and different measures. So the Women's Defense League is a good example. It's a grassroots initiative and helps build resilience against disinformation. You can't fight against it just top down. You can't spell out right solutions from the top. So in the audience, do we have active citizens who have good solutions that we have not come up with, that we have not touched upon, that you know, and you think these solutions should be included in the discussion? Thank you. Kristina Mänd, E-State Academy. Before bringing an example, I would like to speak about my experience. I had a document that said highly classified, and I thought it meant Aktuaalne Kaamera, which is a news broadcast in Estonia. The acronym is the same, AK. So that's when I found out what AK means on Estonian documents. It's not the news report, news magazine. So we mainly work outside Estonia with countries that try through digital transformation to reach transparency and openness. And I mainly work in the sphere of e-democracy and citizenship. We work with civil society organizations, NGOs, and we work with topics like inclusiveness and including citizens. And Margo and Holger have been associated with our work. It's digital, but we are often afraid because cyber security level is low and we don't know how to handle information. The example I wanted to bring is from this year. We gave organizations in Ukraine and Georgia, grassroots level organization, we gave them a green light to do whatever they wanted to do to make people less vulnerable to the digital world. And they decided to train them in handling disinformation, cyber safety. They decided to train teachers in different regions. They were afraid to give smartphones to young people, because while we are Homo sapiens, then they are Phono sapiens. They were afraid that they would lose contact with children. We didn't offer the training, we funded it, but they managed to train teachers in one community, and this has now become a pilot project in Ukraine, and they will start training others. So on grassroots levels, you have to invest in training, you have to inform people. It's not important what your organization deals with. Human rights used to be a topic that all organizations had to speak about, or gender equality that we spoke about 10 years ago. Now it's disinformation and cybersecurity. We are not going to internet, we live on the internet. It's like an everyday need. We are there. This is my suggestion. Any more solutions? Thank you. Anneli Rõigas. I have been a journalist all my life. In the last year, I have been teaching Estonian to Ukrainian refugee children. I would like to say two things. First of all, one sphere where our government has failed to bring truth to children in Lasnamäe. This is our school system. I went to teach Ukrainian refugees, and for half a year I have also had to teach 2 Russian classes, and you have no idea what Russian children born in Estonia are in their mentality. They still claim that the Ukrainians are bombing themselves. The information sphere that they live in is unbelievable. The management of Russian language schools have taken a stance that you can't speak about politics in our school. Our school is apolitical. I ignore this rule and talk to children about politics, but I am amazed that the government doesn't deal with this issue. I really see that children born in Estonia are so hostile towards Estonia. They don't know simple facts. What was mentioned here, that there's a clash between the 2 communities in Latvia, the Russian-speaking and the Latvian-speaking community. I see that risk here too. And another thing that has not been handled well, I have been in a situation where the state spreads disinformation against me, and I have not been able to refute it. I can't even appeal to the court. 14 years ago, a Russian nurse injected without any permission from a doctor medications into my son, and there were other problems that occurred in that hospital, and it was all sort of hushed down, and my son died, and in 2014, from 2014 to 2018, this damage has not been undone. I have taken it to the Human Rights Court, etc. This is just an example of how Estonian citizens do not receive help from the Estonian state, and I don't think it's ethical. As we mentioned, the educational system, schools need attention. But at the Kersti Kaljulaid Foundation event yesterday, somebody said that the list of issues that need to be included in the national curriculum is so long that are there any quicker solutions, any simpler solutions? We had a discussion at the Opinion Festival. We spoke about school media. There are school newspapers in quite many schools. Could that be a channel for introducing media literacy to schools without finding special teachers or having a special lesson on the curriculum? Are there any other ways of improving media literacy in schools without going through the whole educational system and through the ministry? There are a whole number of tools, textbooks, workshops, mainly funded by Americans, and the aim of most of them is to first teach the teachers, and then, or have a pilot project, and then the teachers will teach other teachers, and so on. So the tools exist. There are many of them. It is what Kristina said in her example, but I am not sure about how well they will work in practice in Estonia. Grassroots enthusiasm is great, and they are usually very efficient, but it's quite complicated to have these things sort of work out across the country. Maybe Ilmar, you should make a film for young people. Yes, films need to be made all the time, and I seriously believe that film and media have many aspects that can be worked on. But as far as schools are concerned, it's about mentality, but also about disinformation. I would like to recall my own school days in Soviet times, where teachers gave us disinformation when we look at it from the current point of view. Did we believe it? No, we didn't. I could actually retell the same story to the teacher, and then the teacher wanted me to become a pioneer and a member of the Communist Youth League, etc. So we all knew it was disinformation. But clearly, simply, that someone is able to retell the fact doesn't mean that it has been internalized. And we know that if everything turns out well, then maybe in 2 generations things will change, but not quicker. This kind of disinformation, this kind of resilience, building resilience against disinformation. So if in 2 or 3 generations the communities do not end up in a bigger clash, then we will have a common ground. And then you will have another type of disinformation that you need to fight against. So time will hopefully help. The last topic that I would bring up, because the time for our panel and the entire forum will soon be up, something that we mentioned earlier, the role of technology, that it has amplified the problem of disinformation. Can technology help us solve it as well? Maybe we can meet up here next year and we'll have a genius startup with an algorithm that will find all disinformation on media. In Portugal, there was a conference, and I spoke to a member of FullFact, the British fact-checking organization, and I was exhilarated by the fact that they had created a fact-check app that almost in real time listened to speech and practically simultaneously checked facts. In a few seconds, the app had verified whether the fact was true or not. So is there a hope for technology to solve the problem? I'm absolutely certain that it will not solve it. The problem is not having disinformation, but having people who want to believe it. I'd like to oppose to that a bit. The problem will not be solved by technology, but AI will hopefully alleviate it. And again, it will happen for people who want it to happen. The interest of the people is important. I agree with Holger. I would use such technology myself. I need a tool for media analysis. I would like to get the fact-checking results sooner than I get them now. And I believe that those who have opposing ideas use other tools. So, for example, an algorithm will, for example, in Facebook, show you that this is probably fake news. Another issue is, can we trust that AI? There's a possibility that the AI will create new false information or fake news, because it's not evolved enough. But I'm sure that new solutions will come up. Platforms will use new extensions and so on. But I think that the US and the EU are late in regulating it, allowing the algorithms to grow into what they have grown now. This is like a big black box. I'm not a specialist in digital legislation, but I think there are some tools that or measures that sort of force the platforms to become more open and transparent. So Twitter is swimming against the current right now. So we'll see what will happen to it. An example that made me think only recently. Yevgeny Prigozhin, his life ended on that airplane, and then people looked back on his life, and then, according to surveys, he was the second most popular politician in Russia, although he was not a politician. And at the same time, access to federal TV channels was limited to him, which meant that Prigozhin reached his popularity without television. It means without newspapers, without media, without the traditional media. And outside the social media platforms that we use. We can compare Prigozhin to different kind of disinformation, of course. We can put an equation mark between Prigozhin and disinformation on many occasions, but so we can put a check on the platforms that are used in Europe, but there are other platforms that we can't check. There is demand for such platforms elsewhere. There are new platforms, new channels. Some years ago, again, we have to look back at COVID. It was an important breaking point in the world. And the conspiracy theorists built up new platforms, we, and so on, when we started fact-checking on Facebook and doing researches, and they were actually angry with us. Facebook started closing down some parts of the platform. They moved somewhere else to we. Trump made his Truth Social. What have we heard about these platforms now? Almost nothing. But Prigozhin definitely used Telegram, and this is another very complicated topic. Telegram was mentioned on the last panel on several occasions as the source. At first, it was meant to protect the information spreaders, but now it's backfiring. So a lot of information is spread through Telegram, as we know, that can't be checked. So I'm taking with me what Ilmar said, that the problem starts from the person. And to wrap it up, could you say some final remarks as to what the information hygiene rules for us as citizens should be to be protected against disinformation next year, maybe better than this year? So first, as you said, slowing down, taking a day before answering. So the issue is that the media, ever since online media exists, is always under pressure for time. Who is the first to come out with a piece of news? We are the first was the slogan of the media corporations of the previous century. And I think BBC said it's not important to be the first, it's important to be true to facts. But a lot of information that is quickly uploaded suffers from the speed of uploading. Very often it's information that is not time critical. We could live a couple of days or a week or a month without knowing what really happened. And when we find out, then everything's fine. So when you see a piece of information, think about whether it's time critical for you, or you can digest it in peace and check it out. We are not one big homogeneous group, not in this room or outside it. I think every person should think what is important, what are the 2, 3 most important rules, for example, the 10-minute rule or 10-second rule. I'm quite a calm person. I'm not that easily stirred up. But maybe for some people the 10-minute rule is important. As a journalist, I really believe in checking what's going on different media platforms, different newspapers, edited journalism and being up to date with what is printed and issued is significant. Critical thinking. Do not trust by default what you see on social media. It sounds like talking to school children. If you see something posted or linked in social media, check who put the link up there. If you see a topic, it's a video, it's written about, and you're not sure whether it comes from a reliable source, whether it's manipulated, whether it's misleading, misleading, Google it. Do a fact check on it. With our fact-checking in the Päevaleht newspaper, we are a member of the IFCN, and there are very many fact-checking centers all over the world. We are in a renewing process right now. Their methods and processes are according to a certain standard. So you can always check what someone else has written on that topic before. If you see we all know that disinformation spreads fast. It's emotional, it often becomes viral, very often it's spread on purpose. So all this debanking, pre-banking. The spread of disinformation is always amplified by a like or something. And your like enables an algorithm to show it to other people. So these algorithms tend to amplify also disinformation. So the number of things on this list of possible rules is actually endless. When I come across a story that seems too good or too bad to be true, then Googling is the first thing I do. It's the simplest thing. But while doing it, I also try to reach the primary source. And very often that's enough. The disinformation that I can eliminate through this first filter, and that's very good. So it all comes back to skills, training. Teaching skills is necessary to children, to grown-ups, to your friends. And for me, the transparency topic is important. We as citizens and as civil organizations, if we demand transparency and create more transparency in our society, when we demand it from our state institutions and expect it from them, then this helps us. This helps build resilience to disinformation. If our state and our society are transparent. Thank you, Holger. Thank you, Ilmar. Thank you, everybody, for taking part in this panel.
Dear participants, I can see that not too many people are wearing the headphones, then I would continue in Estonian. Thank you so much for having been part of today, for paying attention to the whole day here, and for your interest that you are showing. I think that many thoughts were caught by the radar today. Two of the main thoughts are take time, and the second is read but check. There were several other ideas, and certainly we must also remember for the future that mis- and disinformation is a poison. It's a threat to our open society, to any society, to our society. In order to fight against it, we need to think about media literacy, civil education, media education, investigative journalism, honest media, more, and about many other things. It remains on our agenda for the next year as well. I would like to thank everybody that helped organize this day here. Thank you so much to our interpreters. Thank you to our technical staff. Thank you to my colleagues from the Open Estonia Foundation, to my colleague Jette Aljasmäe. Let me also say that we can continue conversing in the lobby of the conference center. We promise you that we will invite you back next year, hopefully here, for the next forum, and we hope to see each one of you and all of you in a year again. See you then. Thank you so much for attending.